What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers UFC 270 early look. I am here as always with the man behind the stats, Uncle Weezy. Uncle Weezy, Lou saying the boys are getting last minute advice from Bert. What we were actually talking about were a couple things. We were talking about Bootsy and his amazing pick, 1-for-1 last week on Jamie Pickett. We were talking some Chase Sherman, Jake Collier as well. So we had a nice little combo before we got on. But Weezy, how was your night last night, and are you looking forward to UFC 270? I think you're muted.
Hear me now.
Yes.
Excellent. Dude, my mic has been it's been kind of getting unplugged lately. So whenever you hear me go out, just say you're muted because I'm having a little problem with this one today. But yeah, mixed emotions for me last night. I had my ass shaving of the week as Chase Sherman over Fat Collier. And boy, I couldn't have looked any stupider on that one. But we were just talking about that beforehand, And the last time that Fat Collier got a takedown in the UFC, it was the year 2016, a great year for a lot of people. And he's really only had 3 takedowns in all of his UFC fights. So he got that takedown, and we were talking about it. When you're that obese and you get on top of your opponent, the fat in the front of you, it takes the shape of your opponent, and it makes it almost impossible to get up from under your opponent. And that's exactly what happened to Collier. It was like to Sherman, he was like he was under a beached whale there. And Collier stayed on top. And hey, stand up, Fat Collier. That is a hell of a performance. He's looked fantastic ever since the Aspinall fight. He's looking great. So yeah, big ups, Jake Collier. Great win over Chase Sherman. That's what happens when you pick Chase Sherman as your ass shaving of the week. We have to live and we learn. You wrote that article, Brady. We don't lose, we learn.
What'd you learn, Weezy?
Very valuable lesson.
Let's hear it.
It's it was one of those weeks. So yeah, up 0.5 units on tracked bets, but I got my 1,000th subscriber to my YouTube channel. So it was a huge night for me last night. I want to thank everybody that's been watching my channel. Thank Pub Sports Radio for having me be a part of this show. And, it's really helped me build my YouTube channel. And I'm really grateful for everybody that watches us every Sunday and every Tuesday on Pub Sports, and everybody that's watched my videos and subscribed to my channel. I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of you guys. And can't wait to get into this UFC 270 card with you, Brady. We got our first pay-per-view here of 2022, a main event that is just going to be unbelievable. We got some great fights to go over here.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, congrats on 1K subs. That is awesome. And congrats on your winning night last night. For me, I also had a small winning night. My biggest bet was on Cater. Giga fight starts round 3, minus 176, 2 units. I did beat a lot of line movement on that one. I did not watch the first 2 rounds because I am terrified to watch fights when I have overbets, but I started watching it in the 3rd round, and it was a crazy fight. And Giga showed a lot of toughness in there, but it looks like Cater was able to easily get a decision win there. I had 1.5 units on McGee Brahimaj. McGee decision only. That meant if either fighter finished, the bet would have been voided. You get your money back there. I was really hoping McGee wouldn't finish him because it looked like he was going to for a second, but McGee was able to win a pretty clean decision there. I had Caitlin Chukagian by decision, half a unit, minus 110. So those were the 3 wins there. And then the 4 losses where I had 2 small sprinkles on Sherman by KO, 0.25 units plus 310. Charles Rosa by submission plus 850, quarter unit. I feel like he would have had a much better chance on a full camp for that fight, but he did come in short notice. I had 1.25 units on the under 2.5 rounds in the Kelleher Kroom. I have no idea how that did not hit, but it did not. And then I had Royval winning inside the distance, half a unit plus 105, very close there as well. So a small win here, but glad to start the year off with the win. Hopefully make it 2 consecutive wins with this card here, UFC 270. Before we get started, I do want to shout out the chat here. The chat has been killing it. I have to scroll all the way up to Pablo. First one in the chat back at 526. Brady Bunch president accounted for needing wins, preferably dogs. Well, I think there are a couple dogs that stick out. We have JSJ23, Jason the Gaming Wolf, DXJC, We have Paul in the chat as well. And then Paul and Gaming Wolf had a big conversation with Jonathan. We have Roy. Shout out to all you guys. If you all can hit the like, that'd be much, much appreciated. Tim in the chat as well. Rick, Dave, Lou, Betcha in the chat. Let's see who else we got. Jack Attack. I've never seen so many chats in my life. So thank you guys for all hanging out. Hype MMA, all you guys. Jack Attack. And we got a dono here by F. Carrillo saying, always thank you, gentlemen, for your passion and sacrifice. Well, thank you for the dono, F. Carrillo, and also thank you for hanging out on a Sunday. I know there's some NFL playoff football going on, but we're here to talk some MMA and a very good card. So, Weezy, are you ready to get started here?
Yeah, I'm fired up for this week, man. I mean, that main event last night was so awesome, and I was yelling at this screen in a great way about that's how you fight. That's fight IQ. That performance by Calvin Kattar last night, even though I picked Giga, I didn't bet Giga. I didn't have a bet on the fight. And I was just watching that performance by Calvin, and he did everything he needed to do in order to make Giga uncomfortable, in order to let Giga never get comfortable. He marched him down the entire fight. He was switching stances constantly. He brought the gas tank and the pressure, the entire fight. Really a fantastic performance by Kattar, man. I really wish I bet him because that was A+ for fight IQ. That was A+ for preparation to get into the kind of shape that he needed to push that pace for the entire fight. 5 full rounds. What a performance by Kattar coming off that loss to Holloway, man. Big ups, Calvin Kattar. That was awesome. And I am ready to break down UFC 272.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of fight IQ, you also bet Court McGee, and he put on a masterclass performance. 37 years old, went out there with a phenomenal game plan. Was not expecting it to be that clean, but Court McGee's a veteran. That's what happened here. But we're going to start UFC 270 with an absolute banger. This bout order definitely could get switched around, but I hope they keep it this way because this first fight of the night has potential to be one of the best fights on the card, in my opinion. Although most people probably don't know, who the heck either of these guys are. But I can tell you right now, both of these guys are very, very exciting. Both these guys are finishers, and both of them hit like a truck. So I think someone's going to sleep here and going to sleep early. It's going to be a banger here. We have Jack Della Maddalena going against Pete Rodriguez. We have Jack, who's 25 years old, 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. And we have Pete Rodriguez, 25 years old, 5'9", not sure on the reach as of now. We have Jack, who is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Had a very nice decision win on the Contender Series, and he's going to be making his UFC debut here. And then we have Pete Rodriguez, who is only 4-0 in MMA. But I went back and watched all this guy's fights, and, he's fighting some cans, but this guy hits very, very hard. I think, he's finished all 4 of his opponents inside, I think, like the first couple minutes of the first round each time. So this guy is going in there and just starching these guys. But, it's going to be a good fight here. It's going to be a war. Weezy, what do you think about this one here?
Yeah, this is a crazy fight, dude, because when you go back and you watch the tape on this Della Maddalena, I mean, he is super fun to watch. His knockout over, I forget, I think it might have been Alden Bates. It was the Alden Bates fight, man. He knocked this dude out so clean, so viciously. That dude took him a couple minutes to wake up. Maddalena's good everywhere. He's a jiu-jitsu brown belt. He's a great boxer. He's got really good conditioning and a genuine body for the weight class. And then you look at Pete Rodriguez, 4 professional fights, 1 year as a professional. But I think you mentioned, I think he's got like 7 amateur fights, maybe 9 amateur fights. He's either 7-2 or 5-2 as an amateur as well. Both of these guys are finishers. Jack Maddalena, 9 out of his 10 pro wins by finish. Pete Rodriguez has finished all 4 of his wins in the first round. And Jack has actually been finished in both of his pro losses. We really don't have any stats for these guys. Rodriguez, he's making his debut. Maddalena landed 7.2 significant strikes per minute, absorbed 4.27 against Ante Lucia in the debut. That was a Contender Series fight. This guy, Lucia, was, I think, from the Congo or something. And this guy was incredibly tough. He took some really square shots right to the head and didn't even blink. He ate them all like pancakes. So, I think that this is going to be a fight where somebody gets knocked out very early. Rodriguez is explosive. We haven't seen enough of Rodriguez to know what this guy can bring, because he's finishing off his opponents so quickly on the regional scene that it's hard to know what this guy's going to look like out of the first round. But the wrestling seems to be there. The position over submission grappling with good ground and pound seems to be there for Rodriguez, and he's definitely got power on the feet. It just kind of looks like this one's going to be finishing inside the distance, if not in the first round. And it's going to be, two trains headed at each other at a very fast rate. But Rodriguez is taking this fight on about 1 week's notice here. So it's hard to know what kind of shape he's going to be in, how he's going to look after the first round, because we don't even have any tape of that, as far as I know. At least I haven't watched the amateur fights yet to see if he had been out of the first round at all. But yeah, this one's going to finish inside the distance. It's probably Jack Della Maddalena. He's very impressive to watch. He seems to be very good everywhere. But this guy, Rodriguez, is absolutely starching dudes. It's going to be an admitted big step up in competition for him on short notice. But everything we've seen on tape out of this guy indicates that he might be ready for this already.
Yeah, I definitely think he's ready. DXJC, no more Orly Alves. Yeah, Jack was supposed to fight Alves. Alves pulled out. In steps Rodriguez here. Only bet saying Weezy, can you link your YouTube? It's Uncle Weezy. It should show up there. And then Whoops saying Mega Can Crush with Rodriguez, and I do agree with that. So I did go back and watch the amateur fights, and this is back from like 2016, but we don't have a ton to go off of. But in his only one of his only losses, in the one loss, he got submitted in the first round in about 1 minute and 35 seconds, and that was back in 2019, which is concerning. But went back and watched this loss from 2016, and he was just getting taken down, controlled by a 1-1 amateur fighter. And again, it was a long time ago, 2016. We got to expect improvements, but still, that kind of was not a good look. And then, of course, him getting submitted in round 1 back in 2019 as an amateur as well. But yeah, since then, he's on a nice win streak. You mentioned it, Weezy. He is 7-2 in his amateur career. All 7 of those amateur wins coming in round 1. Actually, 1 is in round 2. 1 was 50 seconds into round 2. So Rodriguez has not won a fight, past 50 seconds of round 2. So it's safe to say, yeah, I think this fight's going to finish inside the distance more often than not. I really do like Jack in the spot quite a bit. The only problem is Pete does look very dangerous, but I just feel like Jack has a lot more ways to win. I really like his combinations. Jack rips to the body very well, and he's very, very powerful. And on top of that, Pete Rodriguez is taking it on short notice. And like I said, I think Jack could potentially use his wrestling here. He didn't do it on the Contender Series, but we have seen him use it in the past. And like you mentioned, Weezy, he is a brown belt in BJJ, and you got to imagine he's going to have a pretty significant advantage on the mat if he doesn't get it there. So yeah, I like Jack here, but I'm kind of looking forward to some violence in this spot. We see that Jack Della Maddalena is a big favorite, opening up minus 300, and he's currently minus 300. And we have Pete Rodriguez opening up plus 250s, currently plus 250. So Jack is definitely one of the biggest favorites on the card. I do think it's warranted, but I don't want to completely count out Rodriguez because I think he is alive to potentially knock out Maddalena. But I'm going to say Maddalena does get this done, and probably within the first round, round and a half. We see that the over-under is set at 1.5. The over-under opened up minus 115 to the over. It got all the way to plus 120. It's now minus 115. The under 1.5 rounds is minus 115. The fight doesn't go to decision, which is on 5 dimes. That is minus 305. Maddalena wins inside. The distance is minus 135. Rodriguez wins inside the distance plus 340. Weezy, what are your thoughts on the line, and then any props sticking out to you first glance?
Yeah, so I don't think I could really lay that kind of juice on the money line for Maddalena, but I really do like him to win this fight. If Rodriguez does take that gigantic step up and handle it with class, I mean, that's something that might not be foreseeable here, but it could happen. But I would rather put my money on Maddalena. But I mean, when you look at this guy, he's been finished in the first round and the third round. Maddalena, he lost his first 2 professional fights, and now he's on a 10-fight winning streak. The longest that any of those fights went was the end of the second round. And then, obviously Rodriguez in 4 professional fights, all of them first round finishes. So I think whoever you're taking here, you're probably going to take him to win inside the distance. And then, a fight doesn't go to decision is probably a parlay piece here, because these guys are both savages, and they both hit very hard, and they both seem to be pretty well rounded too. So I think that one of these guys has got to get finished, especially with Rodriguez coming in on short notice with less than a 2-year pro career. We could see a massive adrenaline dump here. We've never seen him even in a second round as a pro. So, yeah, love the fight doesn't go to decision here. And I like Madalena inside the distance at what, like plus 130, did we say, or is it minus 130?
It's like minus 135.
I still think that there's value on that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'll be looking at the under 1.5, and then also the fight won't start round 3, and then maybe the alternate under 2.5 as well. I'll be looking at those. But I think violent for the very first fight of the night. Hopefully Keith Peterson is not reffing. Hopefully have like Chris Tione in there, because I knew for a fact once I did see that Keith Peterson was reffing the main event, I had the over, and I felt very comfortable about that. I told you that. So we'll see who's reffing there, but I think this fight is going to finish more often than not. We'll move on to the next fight. We have Vanessa Demopoulos going against Silvana Gomez-Juarez. We broke this fight down, sadly, last week, I think, and we're going to have to break it down again. We'll kind of keep this one short. Demopoulos, she's 33 years old, 5'1" with a 62-inch reach. Juarez, she is 36 years old, 5'3" with a 65-inch reach. So Juarez, she's going to be 3 years older, but she's going to have a 2-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage as well. We see that Demopoulos is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. She has a loss to Ariana Lipski. She has a win, or I think these are switched, Weezy. I think Demopoulos just recently lost to Aldrich, and then she also lost to McKay. Yeah. So those are kind of switched around there. But and then Juarez, she made her debut against Lupe Godinez, and she got finished in the first round. So we broke it down before. Vanessa Demopoulos, she's a very good grappler. I think a brown or black belt in BJJ. The problem is with her, she can't really get it there. Her wrestling's not great. And on top of that, she really doesn't even try to get takedowns for the most part. But when she does try, she definitely does not get them. I think if this fight hits the mat in any type of way, she's going to have success and possibly get a submission. But I do like the striking of Juarez. I don't like how hittable Demopoulos is. So I'm kind of leaning on the Juarez side because Demopoulos really can't get takedowns. And if she does strike with Juarez, I think Juarez is going to pick her apart. I still think it'll be a close fight. I still think that Demopoulos is going to pull guard. She's going to flop to her back. If Juarez follows her, Demopoulos can get a submission. But if not, if Juarez fights smart, stays up, I think she can win the fight here. But no real confidence in it. And this is pretty much a 1-100 gambler fight for me. Weezy, has your opinion changed on this fight last time we broke it down?
No, not really. But the line has changed. I think when we talked about this fight last, a week ago today, Vanessa was maybe around minus 120. I think she's sitting around minus 150 right now. So definitely the line is moving on Demopoulos. When you see that Demopoulos has only been doing this for 3 years and 9 months, but Juarez has been doing this for 11 and a half years, it's easy to think that, Vanessa is going to be the one that's making improvements to her game. While, we can probably expect the same Juarez here. So Vanessa Demopoulos, one thing I had to change in the spreadsheet here is she's training at Fight Ready MMA. I saw that on Santino DeFranco's channel when he was breaking down this fight last week, that she's over there now. And for a girl in Vanessa Demopoulos who is 0 of 7 on her takedown attempts and has only gotten less than 7% control time in her 2 UFC fights, Fight Ready is a really good place that you want to see somebody like that training so that they can start to use that wrestling to set up the grappling attacks that she wants to get on the ground. So maybe we'll see Vanessa be a little more efficient in being able to get this fight to the ground. But for me, it's a pretty clear striker versus grappler matchup. If this stays standing for 15 minutes, Juarez should win. If it gets to the ground for about 6 to 8 minutes of the fight, I could see Vanessa winning enough minutes down there, threatening with enough submissions to potentially finish the fight. So I think it's either Juarez by decision or Demopoulos inside the distance here. I'm going to pick Vanessa Demopoulos to win this by a second-round submission.
Yep, it is definitely possible. Dylan mentioning that this fight was moved to 270, so they're going to be in the bigger cage, which favors Juarez, and I do agree with that. We'll take a look at the odds. She opened up minus 135 and now is minus 145 in Demopoulos, and Juarez opened up plus 115, and she is currently plus 125. If I was to bet this fight anyway, it might be Demopoulos by submission, which is currently sitting at plus 500, but I really don't want to put any money on this fight. The over 2.5 is minus 200. The under 2.5 is plus 160. Weezy, any thoughts on the money line? Any thoughts on any props?
No props for me on this one because, like I say, if I would bet, instead of betting the over, I would bet Gomez by decision, and instead of betting the under, I would bet Demopoulos inside the distance or Demopoulos by sub. I kind of think that the time props for this fight are baked into the win conditions for both fighters. Since they're not going to let Gomez bring a shovel into the cage with her, she's not knocking out Demopoulos. And so, yeah, that's what I would do. If I was on the Vanessa side, I would bet her to win inside the distance. And if I was on the Gomez side, I would bet her to win by decision, therefore making the time props kind of pointless to bet. And I would encourage you, don't go heavy on this fight. You know, this is early in the card. I'm not probably going to be betting this fight at all, but I still do think Vanessa probably gets it done inside the distance.
Sounds good to me. We're going opposite ways, but I don't have much confidence on either side here. We'll keep moving on to the next fight we have. This should be a banger. We have Michel Pereira going against André Fialho. We have Pereira, 27 years old, 6'1" with a 73-inch reach. André Fialho, 27 years old, 72-inch reach, or 72. I'm confused.
Yeah, I screwed up. Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm doing a lot of his data entry by hand right now for some reason, and Fialho is got a 74-inch reach.
Okay, I thought I was going crazy.
72 inches probably means 6 feet.
Okay, 6 feet, 74 inches. There we go. In terms of the last 5 fights, Michel Pereira, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had that loss against Tristan Connolly, the DQ loss against Diego Sanchez, a submission win against Zaleem Imadaev, a decision win against Chaos Williams, and then just recently against Nico Price. As far as André Fialho, he will be making his UFC debut, but he has fought some solid competition outside of the UFC. He fought Stefan Sekulik, who was a guy that was in the UFC. He fought James Vick, who was also a guy that was in the UFC. So he's not fighting complete bums. He has some solid, guys on his record there. So this is a very fun fight. Michel Pereira is a very big favorite, and I get it. André Fialho, this guy is a tank. This guy hits very, very hard. He's an absolute finisher, and Pereira is really going to have to mind his P's and Q's. He's not going to, be going in there and messing around in this fight, you wouldn't think. And, Pereira's been doing a lot better at going in there and fighting serious, because when he is fighting serious and not doing, backflips and stupid stuff, he's a very good fighter. He's very powerful. He's very fast, and he's going to have a massive speed advantage in this fight as well. Fialho, believe it or not, Fialho, in my opinion, has the worst gas tank between the two. And I know that's crazy to say, but, I think especially on a full camp, Pereira is going to have the better gas tank in this fight. And I think that's important here. I think Fialho has a chance to win. I think Fialho could knock out pretty much anybody on any given day, but Pereira has shown a very, very good chin. And Pereira has like almost 40 fights on his record, and he's only been knocked out once. So I think Pereira, is able to, not get knocked out here. I think he is able to, use the speed, and then eventually maybe finish Fialho late. But I'm going to take Pereira here to win pretty comfortably. But Fialho is a beast, and I cannot wait to see him in the UFC, because this guy is an absolute finisher. So, Weezy, what do you think about this fight? I think it's going to be a very fun one.
Oh, it's so much fun. Pereira is so much fun to watch. Then you look at Fialho and look at those last 4 fights: win KO, win KO, win KO, win KO. I mean, and he's knocking out James Vick, Sang-Hun Yu, Sekulic, who had a really good fight and probably won his last UFC fight. So, yeah, this guy's really good. And then you look at Pereira's last 2 wins. They're Nico Price and Chaos Williams. I mean, that is really impressive. Chaos Williams has been on fire in the UFC. These guys are about the same size. Pereira, though, in an only 10-year career, has had 39 professional fights. This guy, over a 10-year career, is averaging 4 fights a year. He's been super active. And a lot of those losses came early in his career. Even one of them up a weight class at 185 to Dusko Todorovic. So he's been looking really good down here at 170 recently. This was supposed to be a short notice fight last week. Now Fialho's got an extra week to try to make weight the right way. That probably it gives him just a little bit of an advantage, because Pereira was probably already cutting weight when he was told to wait until next week to fight. So look at the competition for Pereira. He's fighting winning guys, he's beating winning guys, and he's losing to winning guys. And frankly, that loss to Diego Sanchez was bullshit. He was kicking Sanchez's ass, made a dumb mistake with kneeing a ground opponent, and Sanchez pulled what you would call a veteran move. Hey, I can't see, man. Give me my first place check. you got to respect them for doing that. That's what these guys get the shit beaten out of them in a cage. You can't blame them for saying, well, he broke the rules. I want my first place check. So, but Pereira's got to be smart in there. He's got another way that he's got to be smart is not having too elaborate of a pre-fight dance routine planned, because we know that's went south for him in the past. While that performance walking into the cage against Tristan Connolly was spectacular, the second and third round performances when the fight actually started, not great for Pereira. He wound up losing that fight. But this is one that I probably expect to finish inside the distance here, where you see, even though Pereira doesn't have a great finish rate, and yeah, I don't have all the numbers here for Fialho. This is a problem. I didn't even realize that this wasn't loaded correctly, but yeah, this one should probably finish inside the distance. It's going to be a banger. Both of these guys are knockout artists. It's going to be a fun one to watch, but I think Pereira is going to get this one.
Yeah, Fialho has an 86% finish rate, 79% of those coming by knockout, 7% by submission. Pereira, a 65% finish rate. The only problem with the violence bet, because I was thinking about, a violence bet for this fight, the only problem is Michel Pereira does at times mess around a little bit too much for my liking. But, I think I'm with you. I think this fight does finish inside the distance, whether it is Fialho early or Pereira, really whenever. But, yeah, I think it's a really good spot for Pereira. If I'm going to bet against a guy like Pereira, what I want is somebody with very good cardio, even like a Tristan Connolly, somebody with a very good cardio, toughness, durability, somebody that's going to make Pereira work. And that's just not Fialho. Fialho is very low volume, but he throws very, very hard. He's slow. And on top of that, his gas tank, like I said, is probably worse than Pereira. And then on top of that, he's coming in on short notice. So I do think it's a really bad matchup for Fialho. I will, probably be backing this guy in the future. This guy's a beast. Like I said, I just really don't like the matchup there. So I'm going to pick Pereira, but, as we know, Weezy, these guys with poor fight IQ, and he's somebody that has shown in the past very, very poor fight IQ. I think we can classify, a pre-fight 5-minute dance routine, multiple backflips, Tristan Connolly fight. I think we can classify Michel Pereira as somebody that has questionable cardio, right?
Yeah, I mean, but, I think it's because of the choices that he makes in the way that he fights. When you're throwing spinning shit, when you're doing backflips, to try to get a guy to start your ground and pound, yeah, you're going to get tired. So I don't know if it's necessarily a function of him not being in great condition or being a function of him not using his energy in an efficient way. There's a difference, You can be well-conditioned and stupid at the same time. Remember, Brady, there's a very fine line between daredevil and dumbass. Yeah. And it happens in the cage too. When you walk that line between daredevil and dumbass, some really stupid things can happen and you can make some very big mistakes. So yeah, that's that line that Pereira walks. And both of these guys are so explosive though. So yeah, it's going to be such a fun fight. I don't really have a read on the time props right now because I don't have the stats for Fialho loaded correctly. But I can't wait for this fight.
Yeah, I had a bet on, I think it was like the fight doesn't go in Pereira's last fight against Nico Price, which I was shocked that Pereira didn't finish. So I'll probably stay away from this fight. Big Steve with the dono, $2. Appreciate you, Big Steve, always in here on a Sunday. Shout out to you. I was gonna say something. Oh, did you see Michel Pereira, that picture going around on Twitter? Like Michel Pereira is in like unreal shape, like unreal.
Dude, that guy is always in unreal shape.
I know, but it's crazy this time. It's like really crazy.
Wow. Is he training any place different, or is he still over at Scorpion Fighting Systems?
I'm not 100% sure. But,
okay. Well, that's interesting to know. I mean, because I can't believe that guy could be any more jacked and still make the weight class. He's huge.
He's giant. So we'll see what happens. But he is a pretty big favorite here. If I can pull it up. I didn't even see it.
I got him at minus 280 right now over Fialho, and Fialho on the comeback is about plus 260 on one of the websites, but most of the places around 240.
Yeah, I can tell you, I'm not laying minus 300 on Michel Pereira against anybody probably, but I think he does win. The over-under is over-under set at 2.5. The under 2.5 rounds is minus 145. The over 2.5 rounds is plus 115. This is probably going to be a fight where I just sit back and watch, honestly.
Yeah, this is going to be such a great fight that why not just watch it and enjoy it? But if you have a solid read on it, then hit it. Whenever you got a good read, hit on it. But this one for me is something I'm going to have to look into some more.
Yeah, Jack knows what I'm talking about. He said he saw the video. It was crazy. But we'll move on to the next fight. We have Barcelos going against Henry Weezy. We've broken this fight down, like 5 times already?
Yeah, man. How about Hani Barcelos by murder here? If you look at the stats, it looks like everything's pretty same, pretty much the same. They're both 34. Henry's actually more experienced. The finish rates are similar. We don't have any striking statistics for Henry, but he's fought some pretty good level of competition outside of the UFC. So his level of competition isn't that much better than Barcelos. But man, Victor Henry can lose a ton of minutes on his back waiting to get up. And Ronnie Barcelos is such an efficient wrestler that does such a good job of racking up control time, and he mixes it in so well with that boxing that you see why Barcelos is such a huge favorite here.
Yeah, it's one of those cases where I don't think Henry's a bum by any means. I actually think he's really good.
I don't either.
And I like the skill set of Henry a lot, and he has 26 fights on his record. I think he's good, but I just think Barcelos is like the next level or two above him. I think, Henry is, probably a UFC caliber fighter, but I just think Barcelos is just much, much better. And again, we were talking a couple of weeks ago, like this matchup does not make sense, and they're really pushing it. Barcelos is somebody that we'd like to see him move up the rankings at 34 years old, but he's taken a giant step back here.
Yeah, I've been angry about this for a while with Barcelos, because Barcelos, they'll give him an opponent that he deserves. That opponent will pull out either 2 weeks to 1 week before. They give him a short notice opponent that he doesn't deserve, somebody that he's way better than, like Victor Henry, like Marcelo Rojo, and then that guy doesn't show up. And then they say, hey, Ronnie, how about this? Instead of fighting somebody that you deserve, how about 2 weeks down the road, we remake the match that we should have never made in the first place? And this is them doing this again. Barcelos is 34 years old. He doesn't have time to fight Victor Henry. This guy's already beaten Said Nurmagomedov. And in my opinion, he beat Timur Valiev. I mean, this guy deserves way better than Victor Henry. And it's no disrespect to Victor Henry, but there's a reason Victor Henry has 26 pro fights and hasn't been in the UFC yet. It's because he walks that line between high regional scene and low-level UFC competition. So, yeah, man, it's a shame. But Barcelos needs to handle this cleanly. He needs to win in all aspects of this fight to get that next fight that he deserves, and it better be a quick turnaround.
Yeah, for sure. Hype saying Barcelos was booked against the Suntel. Like, that's what I would have liked to see. That's exactly what I'd like to see there. Jack saying I like a lot about Henry's game, as is why I think the line is better for him this time, too. Well, let's take a look at the line. We see that Barcelos is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the biggest favorite. No, second biggest favorite on the entire card. We see that he opened up minus 350. He is now minus 450. And I remember a couple weeks ago, I think he was like around like minus 325, minus 350, around that range. But yeah, he's a bigger favorite here, minus 450, and Victor Henry is plus 350. We see that the over-under is set at 2.5. The over is plus 205. The under is minus 135. I'd probably lean the over with not much confidence. I don't see Victor Henry finishing Barcelos. And if Barcelos did finish Victor Henry, who is very tough, it would be the first time. I could see it happening, but I'd kind of lean the over there at plus money. Any thoughts on the money line? I mean, if anything, I think Barcelos is a parlay piece if I was to do parlays, but I'm not touching the minus 450 straight or nothing.
Yeah, man, he's finished 3 of his 5 UFC wins, has Barcelos, but like you say, Henry never been finished, and I mean that's in 26 professional fights. So I think if you're trying to get a little extra value on Barcelos, maybe you just bet the over or you bet Ronnie Barcelos by decision here. But man, this line is this wide for a reason. Barcelos is the real deal. He's very, very good everywhere, and unless he gasses out, he really doesn't leave you any openings.
Yeah, the one concern would be the gas tank, but I think he'll be fine here. So we're both on Barcelos, and then maybe that over is kind of intriguing to me. But we'll move on to the next fight. We have Kay Hansen going against Jasmine. You're gonna have to help me out here. Jazdavicius?
Jazdavicius. That's a great Lithuanian name there. Jasmine Jazdavicius.
Jasmine.
What you want to do is you take that fourth letter, the U, just take it out of there, like Jazz Da Vicious.
Wow, beautiful. Jazz Davicius.
Great name.
Versus Kay Hansen. Kay Hansen, she's 22 years old, 5'2" with a 63-inch reach. Jazz Davicius, she is 32 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. So Kay Hansen, this is pretty huge. She's going to be 10 years younger, but she's going to get a 5-inch height advantage and also a 5-inch reach advantage as well. Kay Hansen, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. She had a loss against Cora McKenna in her last fight. Very close fight there. Submission win over Jinh Yu Frey in her UFC debut. She is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Jazz Davicius, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She had a win on the Contender Series by decision. And yeah, I mean, this is a very fun fight. I'm looking forward to it. I really like Kay Hansen. She's young. She's, improving rapidly. Her striking's getting much better, and her ground game's her bread and butter. A brown belt and at 10th Planet. Her grappling is absolutely no joke. And going back and watching tape on Hansen, the striking was a lot better than I remember. And again, it's getting much better as well. The takedown defense looks really good. The offensive wrestling looks really good. I really like what I see out of Hansen, and she's only 22, which is pretty crazy. So I think her future is very, very bright in fighting and in OnlyFans as well. As far as Jazz Davicius, she's getting up there in age. She's 32 years old. She is huge for the division. She's going to be at a big size advantage, and that's kind of my only concern in this fight. But I think she was like an Olympic wrestler. So she has a wrestling background. She's a blue belt in BJJ, which really concerns me. And going back and watching tape on Jasmine, a concerning fight that I saw was the Elise Reed fight, where Elise Reed, who's an atomweight, was reversing Jazz Davicius multiple times. And Elise Reed, I think, is a white belt. So I think if this fight hits the mat, which it probably is, I have some serious concerns for Jazz Davicius here. I think Kay Hansen is very live for a submission off her back. I think Kay Hansen is very live to sweep, get on top. I think Kay Hansen is very live to even win a striking fight. Jasmine, she's long, she's rangy, but she's a punching bag. She has no striking defense. I just really, really like Kay Hansen in this fight. The only thing I don't like is she is coming up a weight class and she's going to be smaller, but everything else I love about Kay Hansen in this fight. So Weezy, what are your thoughts about this one?
Yeah, great fight here. Kay Hansen is one of these many prospects here in the flyweight division. It's very young and has looked very good at a young age. It's Kay, who's coming up from strawweight. It's Erin Blanchfield. It's Miranda Maverick. It's Maria Agapova. And then the 31-year-old Manon Fiorot. These young ladies are taking over the division, and it'll happen pretty quickly because it's not a division that's full of talent right now. Jasmine is late to the game here. She's got a 2.5-year pro mixed martial arts career, but prior to that, she was absolutely an athlete and a very good one and an excellent wrestler. Jazz Davicius is going to be much bigger, 5 inches taller, 5-inch reach advantage. It's Kay who's more experienced, even though she's only 22 years old. 60 more minutes in the pro cage for Kay, about 1.5 years more as a pro mixed martial artist, 1 more fight at the UFC level, and almost 15 more minutes in the UFC cage. Kay Hansen is finishing 86% of her 7 wins inside the distance. That's 5 by sub, 1 by knockout, and she's been finished in 1 of her 4 losses. While Jasmine has 3 of her 6 wins are inside the distance, 2 by knockout, 1 by submission. So Kay Hansen is outlanding her opponents. Her striking accuracy up near 60%, very good. And her striking defense sitting around 55%, not bad. About a half strike, significant strike differential per minute, which is solid. And Jasmine, 0.33 significant strike differential on the plus side, which is good. She's out-voluming her opponents. The accuracy isn't there. What I saw on tape from Jasmine was that she's incredibly hittable. I mean, just about everything Julia Pilastri and Ashley Dean was throwing at her when I watched those fights was landing. She'll keep a high guard and have her hands up, and she's still getting hit in the face. I don't like the striking defense for Jazz Davicius. I love the wrestling, but I think that that's not going to necessarily serve her well right now because Kay Hansen being a 10th planet jiu-jitsu practitioner, I don't know what color belt she is at this point. She's a brown belt. She's dangerous down there, Brady. I mean, you've seen her fight. Go back and watch the Erin Blanchfield fight. It was so close, and we've seen what Blanchfield has done. Blanchfield is a top-notch 5-star prospect right now in this flyweight division. The way that she's been destroying the girls that they've put in front of her, including Miranda Maverick, was so impressive. And Kay Hansen, at the age of 19, is in there against Blanchfield, who was about the same age. And that fight, you could have flipped a coin. So if she's hanging on the ground with Erin cold-blooded Blanchfield and Jasmine Jasdavicius just put on a gi like 2 years ago, it's one of those things. You know what this reminds me of? Remember Bartosz Fabinski versus Muniz?
Yeah.
And you're like, Bartosz needs to control his opponents in order to beat them. He needs to wear them out, grind them out. But in order to do that, he's going to be in a position where Muniz is going to be able to use his top-level Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I see a similar situation here where I think Jasdavicius could take down Kay Hansen whenever she wants to. The problem is that she's not good enough in her Brazilian jiu-jitsu game to hang on the ground for long periods of time with Kay. Kay is going to be looking for sweeps. She's going to be looking for submissions off her back. I don't think she wants to wrestle Kay. And then when I see on the feet, Jasmine should be able to use that 5-inch reach advantage, that 5-inch height advantage. The problem with that is that Kay Hansen is constantly pressuring. So it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very tiring for Jasmine to be backing up, moving laterally, because Kay's just going to pressure her. And I think that Kay even might be better on the feet here too. Yes. So it just feels like Kay Hansen's better everywhere. She's fought the much better competition, despite the fact that she's 10 years younger than Jasmine. She's got a year and a half more as a pro mixed martial artist. Kay Hansen was fighting Erin Blanchfield before Jasmine even decided that she wanted to be a mixed martial artist. So I'm picking Kay Hansen here. I think it's one of the safest spots of the week. I just think this is a nightmare for Jasmine. She's really good. She's well-rounded. I think once she clears up her striking defense and can be a little more offensive, hunting for submissions on the ground, that she's got a pretty good ceiling. This is just a bad matchup for Jasmine here, and I think Kay Hansen's gonna win this one convincingly.
Yep, I like it. One angle we didn't even bring up was the cardio. Like, we've seen Jasmine slow down, and not just one fight, like multiple fights as well. And you mentioned it, Kay Hansen's going to be coming forward the whole time. Her cardio and strength and conditioning is top notch. I mean, she's in great shape. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the only concern is the size. And that's really the only concern. You brought up the Blanchfield fight, and that fight was very, very close. What impressed me the most was Hansen's takedown defense. I mean, if she's stuffing takedowns from Blanchfield, maybe she can stuff some takedowns from Jasmine, get Jasmine tired, and maybe even Kay Hansen can take Jasmine down. I mean, if Hansen gets on top of Jasmine, Jasmine's going to be in some big, big trouble. I'll tell you that. But yeah, I like Hansen. I like her quite a bit. The money line, kind of moving all over the place. So Hansen opened up at -115. Instantly to -205. She's now -243 on Bet Online. Jasdavicius opened up -105. She is currently +208. I'm probably going to bet Hansen. I'm just going to sit tight on the line, see where it goes. But yeah, Hansen is one spot that really, really does stick out. The over 2.5 -270, the under 2.5 +210. And then also Hansen inside the distance +275, Jasdavicius inside the distance +670. I'm kind of going to look at the money line for Hansen and then also Hansen sub prop. Those are going to be my two spots I'm looking at. But yeah, I really like Hansen in this spot. How about you, Weezy? What do you like in here?
So here's an interesting one. Let's go through Kay Hansen's wins, right? Her pro debut, armbar win, 123 around 1. And then you mentioned the conditioning, right? How Kay's conditioning is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Check this out, Brady. Win number 2, ground and pound, 2 minutes of round 3. Win number 3, ground and pound, 4 minutes and 16 seconds of round 3. Win number 4 against Sharon Jacobson, armbar, 4 minutes and 43 seconds into round 3. Nicole Kalari, win number 5, neck crank from Mount, 114, round 3.
Round 3, sprinkle.
Perosin, decision unanimous, Jin Yu Fry triangle, armbar, 226, round 3. So the conditioning is there. The ability to be able to be hunting submissions, getting takedowns, wrestling, pushing that pace into the third round is there. So yeah, these are the kind of things when they stick out like that, it's when the bookie's going to be giving you an absurd round 3 prop, because fights just don't finish in round 3, but Kay Hansen finishes fights in round 3.
Yeah, she does. What was that, like 5 or 6 in round 3? That's crazy. That's nuts.
Yeah, and shout out to Sean V in the chat, holding his Uncle Weezy accountable for what it was, just an absolutely horrible, and I promise, Sean, that I will be getting better. I will learn from this. We don't lose, Brady. We learn.
And we learned not to put any money on Chase Sherman, and thankfully he's going to be out of the UFC. We won't have to look at him anymore. But Preston, what's up, Preston? If you have not done yet, hit the like button. I agree, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Yep, guys, hit the like button. 117 of you in here, which is a really good number considering we have playoff football going on. And then also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Shout out to Preston, the man behind the scenes. All right. So we talked through that fight. I think we both have a pretty strong lean on Kay Hansen. Move on to the next one here, and we have Tony Gravely, Saimon Oliveira. We have Tony Gravely, who is 29 years old, 5'5", with a 69-inch reach. Saimon Oliveira, 30 years old, 5'4", with a 72-inch reach. So Tony Gravely, 1 year younger, but he's going to have a 1 inch height advantage, but a 3-inch reach disadvantage. Tony Gravely is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout win against Ray Rodriguez, a submission loss to Brett Johns, a split decision win against Gerardo de Freitas, a knockout win against Anthony Burchak, and then a knockout loss against Nate Maness in a fight where he knocked out Nate Maness in round 1. Nate Maness got saved by the bell, and then Nate Maness came back and knocked him out in round 2, one of the craziest fights of the year. Saimon Oliveira, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights, came in on the Contender Series, had a decision win against Jose Aldo. Not the most impressive win. It was a split decision. I thought he clearly won. I didn't see how it was a split, but he was able to get it done and able to get a contract. And here we have a very tough matchup to welcome into the UFC against Tony Gravely, who is a 28-fight veteran, a guy in Tony Gravely who has fought good competition not only inside the UFC, but outside of the UFC as well. Tony Gravely is a guy that has really solid cardio, phenomenal wrestling, great grappling, and a ton of power on the feet as well. Just a really tough matchup for Saimon Oliveira to come in here and take for his very first fight. Tony Gravely is a guy that I love the skill set. The only problem with Tony Gravely is this is a guy that gets finished quite a bit to the point where it's a little concerning, especially if you see his price tag, which is sitting around like minus 300. Tony Gravely in his career, he has been submitted 5 times, which is concerning against Oliveira here because Oliveira is good off his back, and he's been knocked out once as well. So the only knock on Tony Gravely is this guy is getting submitted quite a bit. But the one thing I'll say about that is when you do take a look at Tony Gravely and who he's getting submitted by, he's getting submitted by very good opponents. The last submission loss for Tony Gravely was against Brett Johns, obviously a very, very good grappler. Prior to that, it was Patchy Mix, a very good grappler back in 2018. He got submitted by Manny Bermudez back in 2017. He lost a decision to Merab Dvalishvili. So he's getting submitted by some very legit guys. He even got submitted by Pat Sabatini back in 2015. So he's not getting submitted by bums or anything, but that it would be my one concern because I really like Gravely in this matchup. I think on the feet, it's Gravely all day. I know that Saimon Oliveira is going to have a reach advantage here, but Gravely hits very, very hard. I don't like how hittable Oliveira is. And then on top of that, Gravely is going to be able to take down Oliveira whenever he wants. Just needs to stay out of trouble, and that's my one concern. So I like Gravely. I'm not sure how I feel about the money line because I feel like Gravely in a win, he looks like a really big favorite here. But, him getting submitted like 5 times, that's my only concern. But I like Gravely here quite a bit. Weezy, any thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, this should be a good one, and I want to just double check one of my stats here, but yeah, it's unbelievable. One of the most interesting stats about Tony Gravely is when you look at that experience number, right? You see that he's got a pro career that's less than 6 years long, and he's got 28 professional fights. That's almost 5 fights a year. This guy's been fighting like almost every 2 months. Basically ever since he came in as a pro less than 6 years ago in 2015, so Gravely's been really busy. 28 professional fights. He's got way more experience than Oliveira in terms of minutes in the cage. Over 300 minutes of cage time to Oliveira's 138. And Oliveira's actually been doing this for 2.5 years longer, and he's been active. He's been 2.5 fights a year, but it's just Gravely's been incredibly active. When we look at the finish rates here, we got an 89% finish rate for Saimon Oliveira, so 16 of his 18 wins have come inside the distance. It's very impressive. And we got Gravely with a 57% finish rate, but you already mentioned it. 6 of those 7 losses coming inside the distance for Gravely, 5 by submission, 1 by knockout. So he's only lost 1 fight by decision, and it was to Merab Dvalishvili, who barely finishes anybody. So yeah, this is a good one though. What have you seen from Oliveira in terms of the wrestling, in terms of the boxing? Because that was one of the Contender Series fights that I did not get to see before this, because we know what Gravely's good at. He's kind of good everywhere. He can hurt you with his boxing. His wrestling is fantastic. 20 takedowns in only 5 fights, almost 40% control time for, 15% control time against. So he's really good at out-controlling his opponents. And we saw Oliveira do that to Alday in the DWCS fight. But what are you seeing on the feet from these guys? What are you seeing in terms of the grappling and the striking to give you your lean here?
Yeah, I mean, I see why Gravely's a big favorite. For one, it's the level of competition, and then 2 is going to be the experience, and then 3, like the stylistic matchup. Because Oliveira, his team is definitely questionable. What I'll say is Oliveira is very active on his back, but I've seen him been taken down a lot by lesser wrestlers than Tony Gravely. Like, Gravely is a legit wrestler, so I think Gravely will have no problem taking him down. Gravely kind of struggled to get Nate Maness down in his last fight, but Nate Maness has phenomenal takedown defense. But other than that, that's really all he struggled with thus far to take down in the UFC. He took down Burchak 4 times. He took down Geraldo de Freitas 7 times. He took down Brett Johns 5 times, and then Ray Rodriguez 3 times as well. So I really think, Gravely will have no problem taking him down. And then on the feet, Oliveira is tricky, but I just feel like Gravely hits very hard, and I don't like the striking defense of Saimon Oliveira. And I think Gravely could potentially knock him out. Like Jedi was saying in the chat, he's liking Gravely by knockout. That's kind of how I'm leaning as well. But again, if Gravely does take down Saimon Oliveira, he's going to have to really watch his neck, because Oliveira is very dangerous. I'm not sure what belt rank he is. I tried looking hard for that, could not find it, but he is very dangerous off his back. He throws elbows off his back as well. Remember watching one fight, somebody took him down. He was able to cut somebody up bad from his back. So there are some concerns, but I think stylistically, I see why Gravely's a pretty big favorite here. On top of that, Oliveira, he has 21 fights, but his level of competition is very, very, very sketchy. And it's just not even comparable to Tony Gravely. So I get why Gravely's a big favorite, but as long as he does not get submitted, I think it makes it look pretty easy here.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the wins here for Oliveira, right? And it's like Giacometti on a Santa Catarina regional, and then Santos 7-6 at Espera, Piazza 12-6 Espera, Duarte 6-3 Espera FC, Montero 7-7. He lost to a guy named Ari Farias, and that was when he stepped up to go fight in ACB. And we know that ACB is serious regional scene competition, fighting some ridiculously tough Russians and Central Asians over there. So, we can forgive the loss, but like that's when he steps up to some competition. Then he goes down to Sicario MMA and he beats Deco de Ora 5-1. Wesley Batista 7-2. Jefferson Bastos 4-2 and MTK MMA. Then he goes over to Pancrase and gets a win there against a 12-2 guy named Wataru Mimura. And then it was the win over Alday on the Contender Series via split decision. So, yeah, obviously it looks like our guy Gravely has fought the much better competition. He's more experienced. He seems to be more well-rounded, and a guy that, I guess if this kid's going to have a chance, it's going to be snatching up a submission on Gravely, who's been submitted in 5 of 7 pro losses. But, yeah, it kind of does look like Tony's going to be better everywhere here and has fought the much better brand of competition.
Yep. What's up, free UFC bet picks? How you doing? Raw Torque saying in the over 2.5. We'll talk about that. Chris saying Oliveira inside the distance plus 450. I really struggle to see Oliveira winning a decision, and it's not something he does anyway, but especially in this fight, So if you do like Oliveira, I think Inside the Distance or by sub is something to look at. Chronic Combat Conversations, I'll be on their channel Wednesday. That Gravely loss still burns this day. Yes, it really does. And I think I was talking to Weezy. I think it was Keith Peterson reffing that fight as well. I thought that fight could have been stopped at the end of the first. We have Monk. What's up, boys? What's up, chat? What is up, Monk? Monk will be on Pub Sports Radio on Wednesday for the DraftKings show. Cannot wait to talk some DraftKings with Monk there. But yeah, as far as this fight goes, I like Gravely here. I'm not sure if I'm going to bet it. I feel like Gravely could very well be a bigger favorite. It's just, is he gonna get submitted or not? I'm kind of leaning towards no, because again, Gravely is a really good grappler. It's just he's getting caught by these very good guys. So we'll see what happens. Gravely opened up minus 170. He's now minus 240. Oliveira opened up plus 145. He's now plus 205. The over-under set at 2.5. The over 2.5 is minus 150. The under 2.5 is plus 120. Fight doesn't go to decision is plus money, plus 100. Oliveira Inside the Distance is plus 400. Gravely Inside the Distance is plus 215. What's sticking out to you in terms of the props or the money line, Weezy?
Like Gravely as a parlay piece would be a good shot there. And the one thing I didn't see was, has Oliveira ever lost Inside the Distance? My stats show no.
No.
Okay, then Gravely with in the UFC 2 out of 3 wins by finish, but outside the UFC it's 57%, so about 11 of 21. So yeah, I could see this one going the distance if Oliveira's never been finished, but my God, Gravely's dangerous everywhere. So I probably wouldn't touch the time props in this one. I just do think that Gravely gets it done.
Yep, I'm with you there. I think Gravely gets this one done as well. We'll keep moving on to the next fight. We have Matt Frivola going against Genaro Valdez. We have Valdez, who is 29 years old, 5'9" with a 72-inch reach. Matt Frivola, 31 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. Take a look at the last couple fights. Matt Frivola is 2-2-1 draw in his last 5 fights. Had a draw against Lana Venata, had a decision win against Jalen Turner, a decision win against Luis Pena, a decision loss to Arman Sarukian, and then a knockout loss against Terrence McKinney. As far as Valdez, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. I think this should be an exciting fight, Weezy. What do you think about this one?
Very exciting fight, dude. When you watch, you want to see a really exciting fight, go and watch the Contender Series fight, Valdez against White. That one was just balls out for 6 straight minutes, just absolutely nuts. And Valdez is, when I watched the regional scene of competition on this guy, he's a good wrestler. He's kind of good everywhere. He's got nice hands. He definitely moves forward a lot. He mixes in his wrestling and is very good with his ground and pound. And that tends to be where he finishes his fights, getting his opponents down to the ground and working, finishing down there with the GNP. So Valdez is good, but, we know that Frivola is kind of like a loose cannon in his own right. 3 wins, 3 losses, and a draw. He's all over the place, a lot of takedown attempts. He's attempted 32 takedowns in 7 fights, and he's had, 12 takedowns completed against him in 20 attempts. Who was it who was 10 for 12 against him? Sarukian, 10 for 12 on takedowns. So I could definitely see this fight going to the ground quite a bit, being a really high-paced fight. When we look at the numbers for these guys in terms of finishes, Frivola a 51% finish rate, but Genaro Valdez a 100% finish rate. I don't think Genaro Valdez has even seen a 3rd round ever in his career. So these are the kind of smash spots that you love to see, is not only when one of the 2 fighters has never seen the scorecards, but when then that fighter's opponent, they call him the steamroller, because he just goes ball out. He will empty the gas tank early, and I could see this being a very exhausting pace of a fight. A lot of wrestling, a lot of defense, a lot of scrambling, a lot of clinch and cage work. So I think this is a good one to bet the fight doesn't go to decision here. And I think it's going to be a very close fight. I'm not sure what the line is on this one, but I'd be interested to see.
Yeah, the line, last time I checked, it wasn't too close. Looks like, if I can find it.
Yeah, they got Frivola here sitting around minus 200-ish. And Valdez, the best you can get him is at plus 189 right now.
I don't know why on Best Fight, why is there like 30 fights? It's hard to find them.
Yeah, I know, man. Go look at the Tapology page. There's already been like 12 fights that have been canceled for this particular event. You
Yeah,
know,
no.
it's just a bloodbath.
It's crazy. I'm like struggling to look through like 30 fights, but yeah, Frivola opened up plus 110, and he's now minus 220. Valdez opened up minus 130, and he's now plus 185. We see that the fight goes to decision is minus 105. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 125. The over under set at 2.5 rounds. The over minus 125, and the under is minus 105. It was just plus money a couple like earlier today. So what do you think of the money line and also any props?
In terms of yeah, I mean, I think what did they say the fight doesn't go is
Minus 125, but it's on 5 dimes.
5 dimes. Yeah, see that feels like a good spot to me because this one is going to be a lightweight fight, and lightweight fights finish about half the time, so the line doesn't it isn't much different than that. You're not paying too much of a premium, and when you're not paying much of a premium over the benchmark for the division, and one of the fighters has never even seen a third round, I think that would probably be the best way to play this. I need to see more of Valdez. I need to go back over the tape for Frivola. Frivola is kind of a hard fighter to figure out, in my opinion. So I'm not really looking to bet this one yet, but I think fight doesn't go to decision at minus 120 for a guy like Valdez, who is definitely a balls out fighter and who has shown the ability to be able to gas out when there's been a pace put on him. I think that'd be the best bet to go for this one.
Yep, I like that look for sure. I'll be looking at some fight doesn't go when that line does drop, hopefully either tonight or early tomorrow. We'll move on to the next fight. We have Trevin Giles going against Michael Morales and Weezy. We've tried to bring it up a lot, and that's fight IQ. And Trevin Giles could have one of the worst fight IQs in UFC as of now. I just go back to that Mearshart fight where he had a clear advantage on the feet. He hurts Mearshart with the very first punch he lands, and then he takes him down. He takes down Gerald Mearshart and then gets reversed right away. And then in the second round, Mearshart shoots a takedown. Giles stuffs it. He stuffs it perfectly. And then instead of getting up, he follows Mearshart to the ground, and guess what? He gets reversed. And then in the third round, same thing. He stuffs a takedown. He engages with Mearshart, and the Mearshart is able to take him down in the third round and then submits him. So just so much questionable fight IQ with Trevin Giles. Somebody I definitely want to stay away from. I don't want to bet on bad fight IQ, and this is what this guy is. But Trevin Giles, he is 20 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. Michael Morales, 22 years old, 6 foot with a 79-inch reach. So Michael Morales is very young, 6 years younger than Trevin Giles, and he's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. So Michael Morales, he's very long, very rangy, solid jab. And he's young, but he doesn't look really green to me. I mean, it looks like he's been doing this for a while. I'm just very impressed with what I've been seeing from Michael Morales. In terms of the last few fights, Trevin Giles, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. That submission loss to Gerald Mearshart, a split decision win against James Krause. I really thought he potentially lost that fight. A knockout win against Bavon Lewis, a decision win against Roma Delizzi, very close fight as well, and then gets knocked out by Dricus du Plessis. As far as Michael Morales, he had a nice win over a pretty good opponent on the Contender Series by decision. Prior to that, he knocked out 4 opponents. He is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. So, yeah, this fight's very weird to me because we have Trevin Giles, who, again, he has the worst fight IQ you could ask for, but I really like a lot of his game, and it's a shame that he has such bad fight IQ because I really like his jab. He's very powerful as well. The problem with Trevin Giles a lot of times is he's very, very low volume, but he's a black belt in BJJ, phenomenal takedown defense. When he goes for takedowns, he gets them at 80%. He's just a very well-rounded guy. The problem is the volume and the fight IQ. But other than that, I really do like Trevin Giles. As far as Mike Morales, again, he's very young. He's very long, very rangy. Throws a lot of volume. I do think the volume advantage will be in favor of Morales, but, if Giles was to fight smart in this fight, I think Giles would have a lot of opportunities to have success. Like if Giles took down Michael Morales, who I want to say Morales is either a blue belt or a purple belt, I think Giles would have a pretty big advantage on the mat. And even on the feet, Giles could potentially be the better striker. It's just, the reach, a disadvantage scares me. And then also, the fact that Giles at times does not throw much volume scares me as well. And we take a look at Giles when he's losing he's typically either getting submitted or he did get knocked out by Driscus, but Driscus, I think he's legit. But other than that, he got submitted by Gerald Mearshart and then got submitted by Cummings as well. So, I see a lot of people betting Trevin Giles, and it's terrifying because he is so poor fight IQ. But at the same time, I kind of see why. And we saw it all last night. All these Contender Series fighters, getting overhyped. Maybe the wrong guy's favored. Like, could you try again? My Apple Watch. But like I was trying to say, like last night we saw these Contender Series fighters. They get kind of overhyped, and we do see Morales coming in here as a favorite. Although I think Giles has this poor fight IQ, I think this is a very winnable fight for him. So what do you think about this fight, Weezy?
Yeah, very interesting that Trevin Giles cutting down to 170 for the first time in his career here against a guy like Morales is just huge for the weight class with a 79-inch reach. You almost never see that at welterweight. So Morales is just a little bit less experienced, only 5 less professional fights, 3 years less as a pro, but about half the cage time overall is Giles, and Giles has fought half of his career at the UFC level. And even prior to the UFC, he was fighting UFC level competition on the regional scene, fighting guys like Brendan Allen. So Giles is, he's got really good ground and pound. He's got a fantastic jab that he uses his jab about as much as Gaethje uses his wrestling pedigree, though, which is pathetic. It speaks to the fight IQ. If you're somebody who actually tells people like John Anik, I have the best jab in the UFC. Trevin Giles has actually said that shit. And how many jabs does he throw? None.
Not enough.
He lands 3.14 significant strikes a minute and attempts less than 6. So that's really bad fight IQ. If you have a great jab, you should be throwing that jab a lot and letting it set up all the other striking that you do. There's no process to the way that Trevin Giles fights. I mean, he beat one guy that might have the worst fight IQ, Dolidze. He got a win against Dolidze, and Dolidze might be the only guy who's pulled more stupid stunts inside of the cage in terms of fight IQ than Giles here, man. I mean, you look at the numbers and you're like, damn, he's 80% on his takedowns. He's getting 20% control time, despite the fact he only attempts 1.25 takedowns per fight, 75% takedown defense, but he's voluntarily engaging on the ground with people he shouldn't be. He's not keeping fights standing and using his best weapon. I got a big problem with the way Trevin Giles does everything. And then when you look at the line and you got to lay, like 66, 70% implied probability on this guy, I'll be on the Morales side most likely, just because I think that, Trevin Giles, in order to win, is going to probably need a finish, because you have to have fight IQ if you're going to win enough minutes to win a decision. And I just don't see Giles having any process to his game. He doesn't use his best weapons. He voluntarily engages in the parts of the fight where his opponent is better than him. And then you add in the fact that he's at a 5-inch reach disadvantage and 6 years older than this guy. And he's cutting down to 170 for the first time in his career. That could be another fight IQ. That could be another IQ thing. He might have no business cutting down to 170. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, couldn't you see this being a complete fucking disaster? Trevin Giles weighing in at 179 in tears. I could. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So, yeah, I am not laying money on Trevin Giles. I'm not betting him as a favorite. I've been burned too many times. These decisions on his UFC, the Dolidze, okay, that was a pretty good performance, his best. Bavon Lewis, come on, man. Bavon Lewis, and then James Krause on less than 24 hours notice, up a weight class, and he barely handled Krause. So I'm not betting Giles. I'll be looking for reasons to bet Morales here.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, he's cutting down to 170, which is not good. And on top of that, like, Giles is somebody that's slowed down in multiple fights. Like, not only his IQ is questionable, but his cardio is questionable. And those are like the two biggest things that I'm trying to stay away from this year, right? So, yeah I think it's a pretty easy pass for me. And Giles is actually the dog. He opened up as a plus 135 dog. Money's been pouring in on him. He's now plus 110. I'm curious to see if the line might potentially flip here. Michael Morales opened up -155. He is now -130. I got to go with Morales just because of the output, because of the cardio. I really like the cardio. He's 22, but again, he does not look green. He looks very experienced. He looks very good. Solid wrestling as well. And then also the reach advantage. But this is a very close fight, because I do like Trevin Giles. I do like his skill set. It's just the fight IQ, the cardio, the weight cut, just too many question marks. But it looks like a lot of people are looking at Trevin Giles as a dog here. And it makes sense. Morales, maybe he's getting a little overhyped here, but I can't bet Giles. I can't bet him. Fight goes to decision, -155. Fight doesn't go to decision is +125. I kind of like the fight doesn't go. Both guys are very good finishers. The only problem is I feel like this could be like a very slow-paced fight, like most Giles fights are, but maybe Morales will, up the volume. So we'll see what happens there, but I kind of like the fight doesn't go up plus money because Giles is a finisher. I want to get the exact finish rate, but Giles has a 79% finish rate. He's been finishing all 3 of his losses, twice by sub, 1 by knockout. And then Morales has an 83% finish rate, 75% by knockout, 8% by submission. So it wouldn't shock me if, Giles was able to take Morales down, submit him. Giles a legit black belt. And it wouldn't shock me if Morales was able to put Giles away, maybe late in the fight as well. Any thoughts on the money line? Any thoughts on any props, Weezy?
Yeah, when I broke down that fight, I was doing it from the mindset that I don't know why I thought Trevin Giles was a -200 favorite here. So that's why I was saying there's no way in hell I would bet him at that line, but I didn't realize he was an underdog. I'm not looking for reasons to bet Morales here at -130, -140, because the one thing that terrifies me about betting against Giles is he's got legitimate ground and pound here, and he's 80% on his takedown attempts in the UFC. So if he does get this fight to the ground and gets top control, he's very, very good there. He finished Brendan Allen with ground and pound outside of the UFC in back in the old LFA days, I think it was, or I forget what. I don't know. It was on Access TV. It was one of the promotions that was on Access. But yeah, so I think Morales should be able to beat this guy, but I wouldn't lay juice on Morales either. So yeah, and when you're looking at a fight doesn't go to decision, you got Giles with 100% finish rate in his losses, and he's a good finisher in his wins too. So maybe him cutting down to 170 might make him more prone to get knocked out, might make him more prone with a rough weight cut to gas out early. So I think fight doesn't go is a good look for this one.
Yeah, I think that's what stuck out to me the most for that one. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. If Giles fights smart, yeah, I think he could win, but we'll see if Giles does fight smart. Next, we have Cody Stamann going against Saad Nurmagomedov. We have Stamann, 32 years old, 5'6" with a 64-inch reach. Nurmagomedov is 29 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. So Nurmagomedov is going to be younger, 29, 3-year difference there. He's going to have a 2-inch height advantage and also a 6-inch reach advantage. Cody Stamann, he has 2-2-1 draw in his last 5 fights. Had a decision win against Alejandro Perez, had a draw against Song Yadong, a decision win against Brian Kelleher, a decision loss to Jim Rivera and Murad Dvalishvili. No shame in those. As far as Said Nurmagomedov, he had a win against Nogueira by decision, a win against Scoggins by decision, a knockout win against Ricardo Ramos, a decision loss to Raoni Barcelos, which was a pretty close fight there, and then a knockout win against Mark Striegel. I think a lot of people that don't know Saad Nurmagomedov might think that, he's going to come in here and try to take down Stamann like 50 times because he is a Nurmagomedov, but he does not fight like a Nurmagomedov. I mean, this guy's striking is very good. Lots of spinning attacks. He has a 7% takedown accuracy, if that tells you anything there, but he's not going to be looking to go for takedowns, especially in a fight like this against Stamann. He's going to want to try to stay on the outside and pick apart Stamann, which I think is very possible. But Stamann, has the opportunity to make this a very close fight with his wrestling because he has very good wrestling. From what I've seen from Nurmagomedov, though, is very good takedown defense, a very good get-up game. So on the feet, for me, it's going to be Nurmagomedov pretty cleanly, especially considering that 6-inch reach advantage. And I really was impressed with the striking. But, Stamann can come in here, make it a very very close fight if he does use his wrestling, which I think he will. So, yeah, kind of a close fight on paper. Which way you leaning here on this one, Weezy?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. Stamann's the more experienced guy, twice as much cage time, 8 more professional fights, 5 more fights at the UFC level, almost 100 more minutes in the UFC cage here. So Cody Stamann, much more experience. Saeed Nurmagomedov, 3 years younger, taller, 6-inch reach advantage. So like you said, Brady, Nurmagomedov is very long, very unorthodox striker, throws from odd angles, a wide variety of attacks. He's an excellent striker, and that is really where he sets up his mixed martial arts game from. Everything works from the striking. While Stamann is more of a wrestler, as we see a 43% finish rate in his 19 pro wins. So the guy's not out there to finish you. He's out there to grind out decisions and win minutes, and he's very good at it. He's only been finished in one of his 4 pro losses as well, while Nurmagomedov has a 50% finish rate in his own right, and he's never been finished in his 2 pro losses. Stamann landing about 0.7 more significant strikes a minute than he absorbs. He's showing 46% striking accuracy and 63% striking defense. So good defensively on the feet, not a lot of power, but he doesn't get knocked down either. And he uses that boxing to set up his wrestling. While Nurmagomedov is really good on the feet, the numbers show it. He's basically doubling the amount of significant strikes that his opponents land on him. So he lands 4.65, only absorbs 2.37. He throws about 4 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents do, showing a little bit of power and showing 61% striking defense in his own right. So he uses his length and movement well to set up his defense. So that's both of these guys are very good defensively on the feet. Both of them, 63% striking defense for Stamann, 61% striking defense for Nurmagomedov. But when we look at the grappling stats, here's where we see where Stamann does most of his work. In 128 minutes in the cage, he's attempted 54 takedowns. So you can count on this guy to attempt about 1 takedown every 2 minutes. And since he spends about a third of his fights on the mat, when you take out that time that's on the mat, he's attempted 54 takedowns in about 80 minutes. So Cody Stamann will sell out for that wrestling. He gets his takedowns at a 44% clip. He gets 2.8 takedowns per minute, and he's out-controlling his opponents at a 2-to-1 ratio, despite the fact that his opponents have attempted just as many takedowns as he has. So Stamann very efficient with his wrestling, very good with his takedown defense, as is above 75%. And he's been taken down 13 times, but controlled 13 minutes. So, people aren't keeping him down when they do get him down. And Nurmagomedov, while he's only 1 for 13 on his takedown attempts, he hasn't been as efficient in the wrestling. We did see Hani Barcelos have some success in the wrestling exchanges against Saeed here. And we know that Cody's a very good wrestler. So I could see Cody winning some minutes on the ground here. However, Nurmagomedov has successfully defended 5 of the 7 takedown attempts against. And in his 33 minutes in the cage, he's really only been controlled about a little under 3 minutes of time. So he's showing a decent get-up game and takedown defense as well. When we look at the strength of schedule, it's Cody Stamann who's fighting the more experienced, better win-loss ratio competition. He's beating the better guys in the more experienced competition, and it looks like he's losing to the better guys as well, having 10.33 total fights as compared to only 5. A slight strength of schedule advantage for Stamann, a slight grappling advantage for Stamann, and a big experience advantage for Stamann, while Nurmagomedov is going to be younger, longer, the more explosive striker here. So it feels like a close fight to me. And if you think that Cody Stamann can't win minutes on the ground, I suggest you go back and you watch that Barcelos fight against Nurmagomedov. He can be controlled on the ground with a good wrestler, and Barcelos did do that to him. So this feels very close to me, Brady.
Yep, Barcelos took him down twice, once in the second round, once in the third, and then Barcelos also took his back standing, kind of rode out that second round with his back and won that second round, and then in the third round controlled him for even longer there. So, I mean, it's definitely possible, and we see that Nurmagomedov is a pretty decent-sized favorite. On some books, he's minus 200 something, but on BetOnline, he opened up minus 245. He's now minus 185. Cody Stamann opened up plus 210, and he's now plus 160. So, I don't think Cody Stamann is like a bum in terms of the striking by any means. Cody Stamann has some very solid striking. I do give Nurmagomedov the striking advantage, but if Stamann is able to work in his takedowns, I feel like it's gonna be a very, a very close and competitive fight. Because Stamann, great cardio, great wrestling, maybe not the best top control, but I feel like this can be a very close one. You have the striking of Nurmagomedov or the wrestling of Cody Stamann. And this line honestly doesn't make a ton of sense. I mean, it does. Maybe Nurmagomedov is this big of a favor because of the Nurmagomedov name. But I don't know. I feel like there's some really solid value actually on Cody Stamann. So yeah, there's that. And then the over is juiced to -280 over 2.5. The fight goes to decision is -260. The fight doesn't go as +200. I think what sticks out the most is Stamann. Stamann money line, Stamann by decision is +260 on some books, +300. So yeah, what do you think of that line? Do you think it's a little wide?
Dude, we know that the Russian tax is a real thing, and the Nurmagomedov tax is even bigger than the Russian tax. It's like if the Russian tax is 20%, if it's a Nurmagomedov, you tack another 20% on top of that. I mean, people have gotten their asses shaved betting on Abubakar Nurmagomedov when he's lost as a giant favorite twice. And that's because there is, in fact, a tax. So, yeah, you're going to have to overpay to get Saeed here. But I think when you go back and you watch the tape, and then if you just look at the raw data, we got a really good, really efficient wrestler here in Stamann, and I believe he can win minutes on the ground. It's just Nurmagomedov is not going to make it easy on him. This guy trains with great wrestlers over at Akhmat, but his distinctive competency is striking. So I think this is going to be a very close fight. I think it's going to go to decision. What's the fight goes?
Like -300 around there.
Okay. So you needed your Uncle Weezy to tell you that. I like fight goes. It's a 75% implied probability. So, yeah, I wish I would have looked at that before I had said something as stupid as I like fight goes. But, yeah, this, whoever you like probably wins this by decision. So maybe that's how you get a little extra value betting this fight, because if the bookies are saying it goes 75% of the time, then it probably does. And then you can get a little bit of it was like betting Court McGee by decision, yesterday. Court McGee, had won 7 of his 9 fights, by decision in the UFC, and he never gets finished. So it's just a high probability. And when you're getting an extra 10, 15, 20% implied probability as a gift from the bookies there, take those gifts when they give them to you.
Yeah, Jack's saying in the chat, if you like Stamann playing by decision, I agree. I'll be taking a look at that Stamann by decision prop, and maybe even the money line. We'll see what happens there. But we'll move on to the next fight we have. Let's see. We have a decent amount of fights left. We have a lot of fights on this card. I think like 13, right? So we have Stamann, now Vieira, Turman, Jourdain, Topuria, Figueiredo, Moreno, and then Gane and Ngannou. So is Vieira Turman opening up the main card pay-per-view, Weezy? I hope not. Are we paying for this? I think you're muted.
Yeah, and then it took me like 10 seconds to hit that mute button, man. Now I'm still lathering up for 2022 here.
There you go.
Yeah, this is not starting off the main card. Well, you know what? We don't even know. This is from Tapology. So this is going to get moved on. But according to Tapology, the main event starter is going to be Stamann Nurmagomedov.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. But yeah, this fight, Rodolfo Vieira, one of the biggest upsets of last year. One of my most upsetting moments was going out there being very confident in Rodolfo Vieira, and then him gassing out within minutes. And I forget who was commentating that fight. I want to say it was maybe DC, but he was saying that it was the most tired he's ever seen a fighter in the first round. And I was shocked how tired he was against Fluffy Hernandez. And then Fluffy Hernandez submitted a world BJJ champion and one of the best grapplers in UFC history in Rodolfo Vieira. So that happened, but he was able to bounce back at a nice win against Dustin Stoltzfus. And let's see if he can build on that here against Wellington Turman, who has not been looking great at all in his last couple fights. But Turman, he's young. He's 25 years old. He's going to be 6 years younger than Rodolfo Vieira, who's 31. They're both 6 foot, and then Turman's going to be at a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Take a look at the last couple fights. Vieira is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Had a submission win over Oscar Pajota, a submission win over Saperbad Safarov, that submission loss to Anthony Hernandez, and then a submission win against Dustin Stoltzfus. As far as Turman, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A decision win over Carl Roberson, a decision win over Marcus Perez, a knockout loss to Andrew Sanchez, a knockout loss to Bruno Silva, and then a decision win against Sam Alvey. So the problem I have with Vieira in this fight is cardio, and like I've been talking about, cardio is something I'm really looking at in 2022. Cardio is what actually saved me about a unit and a half last night. Jonathan Brito, I was very tempted to bet him. I was going to bet him, but I saw that he had questionable cardio, and he showed questionable cardio in the fight last night, so I kind of stayed off, and it worked out. Rodolfo Vieira, his cardio is extremely questionable, especially in fights where he's going in there and he's going for takedowns. Last fight against Stoltzfus, it was weird because he didn't attempt a takedown, I don't think, in the first round, which was very weird. I think he got one in the second, and then he started using his wrestling in the third round. So I really like that game plan from Vieira, and I think if he does that, he very well could have a good chance to win here. Vieira's striking looked a lot better in the Stoltzfus fight. I personally had Vieira down 2 rounds. I thought the commentary was pretty biased in that first round because Stoltzfus was outpointing him pretty clearly. Don't have the exact strike numbers, but he was getting outstruck in both rounds. But he looked a lot better than I thought he was going to in the striking, so that was good. And then the cardio looked a lot better because he wasn't going out there, attempting a ton of takedowns, attempting a ton of submission attempts, which was very smart. So Vieira came in there with a very, very smart game plan last time. Let's see if we can do it here against Wellington Turman, who, in my opinion, is going to have the striking advantage here. Wellington Turman's going to be the younger guy. Wellington Turman is a legit black belt in BJJ. Obviously, pure grappling, you got to favor Vieira, but Vieira's gas tank is what scares me a ton, especially considering this guy is one of the biggest favorites on the card, which is terrifying to me. Absolutely terrifying. So it's a close fight. On the feet, I think it's very close. I like the power of Vieira, but Vieira is very hittable. Turman striking is probably better. You give the wrestling advantage to Vieira 100%. You give the grappling advantage to Vieira 100%. But, how long do you give him that advantage? How long is his gas tank going to hold up? So very interesting fight here. Very interesting line as well. And I'd be shocked if there was anybody out there betting Vieira at -300 after the stunt he pulled against Fluffy Hernandez. Weezy, were you on Vieira that night? Because I was, and it felt horrible.
Yeah, I was on him that night too. And I remember talking in your Discord about that fight. And I was saying, man, I love Vieira here, but I think I'm going to take Hernandez in rounds 2 and 3, just because I've seen Vieira death gas before. And you typed, I wasn't even typing to you, but you were like, he looked pretty good in the second round against Pachota. And I went back and I watched that and I was like, yeah, I guess he did. And this guy Hernandez is a bum. And I wish I had done that, because second round, he death gassed like he had in the Safarov fight. And he had, obviously, in the Hernandez fight. And then he even looked like he was getting tired against Pachota, too. So it's hard to lay this kind of money on Vieira. This is grappler versus grappler here. The one thing is, you have to give Vieira credit, because when you have an embarrassing moment, let's say you get submitted by a purple belt, or you're Chase Sherman and you get taken down by Fat Collier and then submitted, by a guy who couldn't submit anybody in the heavyweight division. The only thing that you could ask is, please look in the mirror, learn from your mistakes, and then go out there the next time like a professional and show that you have fixed some of those holes in your game. And man, oh man, did Rodolfo Vieira do that in the Stoltzfus fight. He didn't wrestle at all for the first 7.5 minutes of that fight, conserving his gas tank, and he had made the requisite improvements to his striking so that he could actually have that game plan and not get knocked out in the first. So he grew, in my eyes, quite a bit, because he came back from a very embarrassing performance that could get in a lot of people's heads and frankly ruin the rest of their careers. Some people don't recover from a loss the same as other people do. So Vieira, in my opinion, really had a fantastic performance against Stoltzfus. But we still have to kind of look at Turman here and say that this is a very similar skill set of a fighter. Turman is another Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, high-level BJJ competitor. His striking has been serviceable in the UFC, just as serviceable as Vieira's has been, because I think Vieira's performance against Fluffy Hernandez was one of the worst striking performances that I've ever seen. Never mind the gas tank. Go watch him strike. It looked like it was his first day. It looked like he had never struck before. And I proudly proclaimed going into that Stoltzfus fight that Vieira was the worst striker in the UFC. And then he came out and he looked good. His striking looked so much better. So I like the improvements that we saw out of Vieira. Maybe he learned his lesson. Maybe he's been working on patching those holes, because if he patched the conditioning hole and the striking is still improving at the rate that it did between the Hernandez and Stoltzfus fights, if he takes that next step with his striking like he did in the last fight, he should absolutely wipe the floor with Turman, because there won't be anywhere that Turman's better than him. But is he continuing to make those improvements? If you're betting Turman, you're saying maybe there's going to be a regression back to the mean here with Vieira having to gas out again. But, the thing about Vieira is he doesn't necessarily need to shoot takedowns here, because Turman isn't that good of a striker that Vieira is going to be at a huge deficit here on the feet. So I think Vieira is going to be able to fight a smart fight. I don't know where Wellington is better than this guy, so I got to pick Rodolfo here. But yeah, dude, I'm not laying minus 300 on a guy that pulled a stunt that cost both of us money. And I mean, I was like depressed for like 72 hours after that. I'm like, I remember watching that fight with my girlfriend being like, see that guy over there that looks like an action figure? This guy's going to destroy. I was just talking about so much shit about how he's just going to wipe the floor with Hernandez. And like 3 minutes into the fight, she goes, do people usually look that tired in the first round? I'm like, no, honey. No, they don't.
Good times. Good times. We see that Rodolfo Vieira opened up minus 350. Money's been pouring in on Turman, minus 255. Vieira is Turman. Open up plus 285. He's now plus 215. Yeah, I'm actually going to go the other way and go with Turman. But, there's a spot that I like a little bit more, and that's, I think, a pretty sneaky spot here. The over 1.5 rounds. The reason being is, first of all, I don't see Turman submitting Vieira, at least fresh. Like, if he submits him, it's probably been like the third round if Vieira does gas out again. I don't see Turman knocking out Vieira. Vieira did show a ton of toughness in that fluffy fight. And on top of that, Vieira, if he comes in here and fights very smart like he did in his last fight against Stoltzfus, where he's not going for takedowns, where he's just striking from the first round and a half against Turman, like this fight's, clearly going over 1.5. So I kind of like the over 1.5. I saw it at minus 105 on one book, minus 130. The under 1.5 is plus 100. So I think that's kind of how I'm going to look at it. The fight goes to decision is plus 210. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 270. Vieira inside the distance is minus 130. Turman inside the distance is plus 410. I think the most intriguing thing to me is that over 1.5. I think it's very, very sneaky. I think a lot of people expect Vieira to come in here, submit Turman early, and I really don't see that happening. So, yeah, give me the over 1.5. How about you, Weezy? What do you think of this fight from a prop perspective or money line perspective?
What is that fight goes? Did you say plus 180?
Plus 210 fight goes.
Wow. Plus 210. Wellington Turman's had 5 UFC fights. Only one of them is finished inside the distance. Or no, I'm sorry, 2 of them. 2 of them. He lost by knockout twice, but those were, to Sanchez and Silva. That's kind of interesting to me because, like I say, I don't think Vieira is going to submit Turman, and I don't think Turman's going to submit Vieira, and I don't think either one of these guys could knock anybody out. So, I at that kind of a rate, even the analytics say that that's a slam dunk because, middleweight fights finish 58% of the time. This one's saying it's going to finish what? 66, maybe even 70% at that implied probability. So that might be something to take a look at here because I could see this one going the distance.
Yeah, I could as well. At the very least, the over 1.5 feels pretty safe to me because if Vieira does gas, that's where I'd have my concern about this fight. Finishing inside the distance would be if Vieira did gas bad.
Yeah, I just don't know if Vieira is the same fighter he was, because we got to remember Vieira is 31 years old, but the MMA career is less than 5 years. So he's still learning how to manage his energy in the cage. And I think he got a very big lesson in how important that part of your game is. And it looked like he learned from it. And if he takes that to the next level and paces himself in this fight too, man, at over plus 200 for fight goes, that's very interesting to me. It'd be about a 10% edge over how the division finishes. And yes, Rodolfo Vieira, all 9 of his pro MMA fights have finished inside the distance, but for Turman, it's much less than that.
Yep, for sure. Jack Attack saying when Vieira Gas versus Fluffy got finished under 1.5, I'd be shocked if Vieira ever looked as tired as that again. It'd be impressive if he did.
Yeah, that was I can't remember other than maybe Gadzi Murad Anti-Gulov's fights. Anybody ever looking that gassed in the first round? That was unbelievable.
It was like an Agapova moment where Agapova, that was even in the second round, right? So yeah, I've never seen anything like that before in my life.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, we'll move on to the next fight. This fight's gonna be very fun. We have Charles Jourdain going against Ilia Topuria. We have Charles Jourdain, 26 years old, 5'9", 69-inch reach. Topuria, he is 24 years old, 5'7", 69-inch reach. Topuria is going to be 2 years younger. He's going to be at a 2-inch height disadvantage, and they both have the same reach there. Jourdain, he is 2-2-1 draw in his last 5 fights. A decision loss against Andre Fili, a draw against Josh Kulabau, a knockout win against Marcelo Rojo, a submission loss to Juliana Rosa, and his very first decision win ever against Andre Yule. Very, very good performance there. As far as Ilia Topuria, he has 5-0 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Yusuf Zalal, and I tweeted this out earlier today. He was a dog against Yusuf Zalal, which looking back at it is crazy considering he's like minus 500 here, but was able to win by decision there. I think that was his very first decision win ever, and then he knocked out Damon Jackson, and he knocked out Ryan Hall. So, yeah, very good fight here. Charles Jourdain is stepping in on short notice for Movsar Evloev. We see that Topuria is the biggest favorite on the card by a significant margin, and I definitely get why. I think that, Topuria has all the tools to make this look pretty easily, honestly. And, Weezy will get into the stats. He'll talk about Jourdain's horrific takedown defense, and Topuria, his wrestling is grappling just next level. So I think it's a really tough matchup for Jourdain to take on short notice here, but props to him for taking it. So what do you think about this one, Weezy?
Yeah, Jourdain asked for this one, man. He wanted this, so yes, props, dude. But yeah, these guys are fantastic prospects, both of them. And don't forget that Ilia Topuria is 24 years old, and Jourdain's 26. Jourdain 2 inches taller. They got the same reach. Jourdain switches stances while Topuria is just out of the orthodox stance. It's Jourdain with 6 more pro fights, about 3 times as much professional cage time as Topuria, but their length of career is within about a year of each other. They're both between 5 and 7 years of experience as pros. And as Jourdain's 7 UFC fights, to Topuria's 3. So he's been in the UFC cage about 75 more minutes than Ilia Topuria. So not only a size advantage here for Jourdain, but also an experience advantage. When we look at how these guys finish fights, Jourdain 11 of 12 wins inside the distance. Topuria, I believe it's 10 of 11 inside the distance. And in the 4 combined losses, only 1 of them has been inside the distance. So this is clear striker versus grappler here. I think a lot of people are overrating Ilia Topuria's striking here. He's not going to be a better striker on the feet than Charles Jourdain, not by a long shot, but it's the grappling that sets up his striking, because people are terrified of being taken down by Ilia Topuria, and rightfully so. The guy is a very highly credentialed grappler and submission artist, and we can see it in the finish rate, having finished 64% of his pro wins by submission. So Jourdain, in a pretty decent sample size of 7 UFC fights here, is landing about 1.25 more significant strikes per minute than he absorbs, lands 5.7, absorbs 4.57, throws 11.6 strikes per minute, landing at a 49% accuracy. And those knockdown numbers, I think 0.93 knockdowns per 15 minutes is correct. I think that puts him right around 3rd in the featherweight division behind Josh Emmett and Giga Chikadze. And then we've got Topuria, who is landing 2.77 significant strikes a minute, absorbing 1.92. He's landing 2/3 of a knockdown per 15 minutes. So Jourdain doesn't wrestle. By the way, we should also mention 60% striking defense for Jourdain, 65% striking defense for Topuria, and Jourdain has been knocked down before. So it's Topuria's grappling game that sets him apart here. He's over 50% on his takedowns. He's out-controlling his opponents 42% to 13%, and he's shown 100% takedown defense thus far. Now, Jourdain has only attempted 3 takedowns, and he's got none of them. But One of the things that you do like to see here, and I think this is a very important stat, Brady, especially when you're looking at somebody in Topuria that is as juiced as he is at this spot. In 7 UFC fights, Jourdain has faced about 3.5 takedown attempts per fight. His opponents have gotten more than half of them. So his takedown defense is only 48%. He's been taken down 13 times. But even though he's been taken down 13 times, his control time against is only 11 minutes. So his opponents are controlling him less than 1 minute per takedown and less than 30 seconds per takedown attempt. So as bad as Jourdain's takedown defense has been, his get-up game has been very good, and his grappling has actually been very efficient, because when your opponents out takedown attempt you at more than an 8-to-1 ratio, but they don't even out-control you at a 2-to-1 ratio. As a matter of fact, he's controlling his opponents in about as much time as they're controlling him. Ciryl Gane has a very underrated get-up game and a good ability to keep the fight standing, where he's going to be the most comfortable here. We got a 7-fight sample size here, and we've gotten 80% of those 7 fights have taken place at striking range. So that's going to be something that I think is very important here, because I don't think Topuria is a better striker than Ciryl Gane. I think we've seen him get a couple of knockouts, one on the regional scene, one against Damon Jackson, and you say to yourself, okay, this guy's got, dynamite in his hands, but it's not his striking experience is not great. His grappling is the heart of his game. And I think he's caught people with big shots because they're afraid of him shooting. So I think Charles is going to be way better on the feet here. When we look at the strength of schedule stats, it's Jourdain who's fighting the more experienced competition, but Topuria who's beating the better win-loss competition here. The wins are better for Topuria, and the loss, Topuria's never lost. So I would say that the strength of schedule is actually fairly close here, although Jourdain has more experience. He's fought better competition on the regional scene and in the UFC, but not by much. It's going to be Jourdain with the striking advantage here, and he's going to be a little bit bigger. Topuria with a huge grappling advantage here, though. And Topuria's fights are taking place at grappling range 55% of the time. So I think that's going to be the tale of this story, Brady, is which one of these guys gets their way. Because if Jourdain gets his way and this fight is only in the grappling exchanges for 20% of the fight, I think you might want to favor Jourdain here. But if Topuria gets it to where it's over 50% on the cage and on the ground, he should easily win this fight.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest thing that sticks out to me is that 48% takedown defense. I mean, he's getting taken down. It's not that it's 48%, because you mentioned he has a really good get-up game, but I mean, listen to who he's getting taken down by. Andre Yule got taken down, Julian Erosa taken down twice, Marcelo Rojo taken down once, Andre Fili taken down 5 times, and then Desmond Green taken down 4 times. I just feel like Topuria is a better wrestler / grappler than all of those by a pretty decent margin. But yeah, like you mentioned, if it's on the feet, it's gonna be very close, because I went back and watched that Jackson fight, and he was getting like touched up by Jackson at times. But Topuria does have a ton of power on the feet, but so does Jourdain. We see that Topuria is a huge favorite, open up -350. He is now -550, and money is still pouring in on Topuria. Charles Jourdain opened up +285. He's now +285. I'm really curious to see how wide this line does get. The over-under is set at 1.5. The over is -165. The under 1.5 is +135. The fight goes to decision +130. The fight doesn't go to decision is -170. I mean, I'm not doing any parlays this week, but if I was, Topuria probably would be a parlay piece, but I'm not. But yeah, that line is getting pretty wide. I do think it probably gets wider. Weezy, thoughts on the line? Thoughts on any props here?
Yeah, the line's just a little bit wide for me, but I get it. This guy Topuria's got a ton of hype. I mean, he was gonna fight Mavzar, so this is a huge step down from Evloev here. But still, he's got stuff to prove. I mean, you look at these names: Yusuf Zalal, Damon Jackson, Ryan Hall. All of those wins, you could be kind of like, and even when he beats Jourdain, if he beats him, still Jordan's just a little bit above those names. We gotta pump the brakes just a little bit on Topuria. You know, he's got to get a signature win here first. But he has absolutely dominated the guys that he was supposed to dominate. That's what we like seeing here. Yeah, and I mean, taking a shot on Jordan at short notice with 48% takedown defense, even with the get-up game, it's harder to be aggressive with the get-up game when the guy might be getting your back and finishing you. Unlike the guys like Culibao, Rojo, Erosa, Ewell that Jordan were fighting before, and even Jordan got submitted by Erosa in the third round. So it could happen. It could definitely happen. I think I'm going to be staying away from this one, though.
Yep, I'm going to be staying away as well. I guess one thing that stuck out is the fight doesn't go as only -170, which is kind of surprising considering both guys are like really good finishers. Jourdain did not win his very first decision until his last fight against Ewell. I thought he was going to finish that fight as well, but Jourdain had 92% finish rate, and then Topuria at 91% finish rate. Both guys only winning one decision in 28 fights. So I thought the -170 fight doesn't go was pretty interesting. I thought it'd be much wider than that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a pretty good look here. It's not that out of whack because, you know, you talk about a 91% finish rate for Topuria and a 92% finish rate for Jordan. Even though Jordan's only been finished in 1 of 4 losses, it was by submission. That's probably how Topuria gets them. So, yeah, that looks like a good line to me.
Yep, for sure. So we'll look at that. We have 2 fights left, the co-main and the main event. So yeah, I'm really struggling with this fight. We have Deiveson Figueiredo going against Brandon Moreno. Number 3, we have Figueiredo, who is 33 years old, 5'5" with a 68-inch reach. Brandon Moreno, 27 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Brandon Moreno is going to be 6 years younger. He's going to be 2-inch height advantage and also a 2-inch reach advantage. So the tail of the tape is in favor of Brandon Moreno. And honestly, when we go through the stats, which we will, like most of the stats are all in favor of Brandon Moreno as well. We see that Deiveson Figueiredo is 3-1-1 draw in his last 5 fights, a knockout win over Joseph Benavidez, a submission win over Joseph Benavidez, a submission win over Alex Perez, a draw against Brandon Moreno, and then a submission loss to Brandon Moreno. As far as Moreno, he is 4-0-1 draw in his last 5 fights, a decision win over Kai Kara France, a decision win over Jussier Formiga, a knockout win over Brandon Royval with that injury to his shoulder, and then a draw against Deiveson, and then a submission against Deiveson. What I will say is I went back and watched their first fight against each other, and it was a very, very close fight. I thought Figueiredo won personally, and he would have won if there wasn't a point deduction there. But I thought Figgy looked really good in that fight. I thought he looked really good late in the fight as well. He surprisingly won the 5th round, which was really shocking to me. But he looked good, and it was a very competitive fight. So the next fight happens, and Figgy looks like a complete shell of himself. He goes in there. He just like stands in and like looks at Moreno while Moreno is teeing off on him. Moreno's taking him down. I don't know what happened to Figgy. I mean, was it the weight cut? Because he did look horrible on the scales, but he always looks bad on the scales. But this time he looked very, very bad. It was very concerning. And his performance was just like completely unlike anything I've ever seen from Figueiredo. So the big narrative that people are going to be talking about all week, we're going to hear it a ton. He moved to fight ready. And there is a picture of Figueiredo on Twitter that I've been seeing going around, and he looks probably in the best shape of his life. So if he comes in here and he makes weight, if we get the best version of Deiveson Figueiredo, the best version, this is a very, very close and competitive fight, like it was in the first fight. If Figgy is, damaged at all in terms of the weight cut, yeah, I mean, he looked horrible. But if he does come in and he looks good on the scales, I think there could potentially be some value here on Figgy because he is a decent-sized dog. And I get why, because Brandon Moreno dominated the last fight, but Figgy looked really rough on the scale. So this is a fight where I have no clue who I'm picking yet, probably until the weigh-ins. I think the weigh-ins is going to be the biggest story of this fight. Is Figueiredo going to look good? If he does, if we get the best version of Figgy, I think it's a competitive fight. If he looks like crap, I'm probably just going to sit back and watch. But yeah, Weezy, this is a very fun co-main event. We've seen these guys fight 2 times already. Both times were very fun fights. I think this third is going to be a very fun one as well.
Yeah, I hope Deiveson makes weight and looks great, because if he does, this is going to be such a fun fight. I mean, Figueiredo's fights are always fun, and Moreno the same thing. But it's kind of shocking when you look at the stats here how many advantages Moreno has. I didn't, he's 6 years younger, 2 inches taller, has a 2-inch reach advantage. In addition to that, he's more experienced, even though he's 6 years younger. He's got 3 more professional fights. He's got over 100 more minutes in the pro cage, almost 1 more year as a pro. He's got almost as many UFC fights as Figueiredo. He's got about 25 more minutes in the UFC cage. Both of these guys finish fights at a pretty high rate. Moreno, 74%. Figueiredo, 85%. That's 17 to 20 wins inside the distance. That would be 8 by submission, 9 by knockout. So he's an equal opportunity finisher, while Moreno tends to finish people more by submission. And in these guys, 7 combined losses, only 1 of them has been finished inside the distance, and they've been to draws 3 times. So it's crazy. You know, this is a 5-round fight, and I'll bet a lot of people think it's going to finish inside the distance. But when you just go off the loss numbers, these guys are incredibly hard to finish. The last loss for Figueiredo was the first time he was ever finished as a pro, and first time he was ever submitted. So very interesting there. Figueiredo actually absorbs more strikes per minute than he lands, which is something that's not entirely surprising when you see guys that have the kind of power that Figueiredo does at this weight class. Usually it's a red flag when they absorb more than they land, but when they land with so much power, and Figueiredo's landing a knockdown on almost 2% of the significant strikes that he's landed. So that's 8 knockdowns in 12 fights, only 411 significant strikes. So very, very good numbers for Deiveson. And Brandon is actually landing 0.15 more significant strikes per minute than he absorbs. He's better defensively than Figueiredo, and he's got a little bit of power in his own right, and he's out-voluming his opponents while Figueiredo is getting out-volumed by his opponents. Both of these guys are getting their takedowns at like a 50% clip. Both of these guys leave a little something to be desired with their takedown defense. For Figueiredo, it's less than 60%, and for Moreno, it's 66%. Moreno is out-controlling his opponents at a 2-to-1 ratio, while Figueiredo is allowing the same amount of control time that he gets. But Figueiredo's been really efficient in the grappling exchanges here, because even though Figueiredo's opponents have taken him down 6 more times than he's taken down his opponents, and his opponents have shot 21 more takedowns than Figueiredo has, Figueiredo's not getting out-controlled on the ground. So he's been very efficient. While Moreno's been efficient too, because he's attempting about the same amount of takedowns, but he's out-controlling his opponents. And when we go to the strength of schedule numbers, they're negligible here. Maybe a little bit better for Figueiredo on the whole, but they're excellent. So this is, Moreno, bigger, younger, more experienced. He's probably got the better gas tank here. He's going to be throwing more output here. It's Figueiredo that's really, so I would say Moreno probably the minute winner, but Figueiredo the explosive guy that really only needs to win a moment or two in order to win the fight. So great fight. I think it's going to be a scrap. I think I might take a shot on, a fight starts round 3 or an over here, just because both guys are so hard to finish. And especially if Deiveson looks good, if he looks like he had a good weight cut and he'll be ready to go a full 5 rounds, something playing the over here might be something I go for.
Yep, I was thinking the same exact thing. That was one I had circled. We take a look at the finishing rates. Both guys are very good finishers. Moreno, 74% finish rate, 58% by submission. Figueiredo, an 85% finish rate, 45% by knockout. But in their combined 7 losses, only one of them coming inside the distance by submission, which was Brandon Moreno finishing Figgy there. But yeah, Moreno is very, very tough. This guy has an unreal chin. Both guys legit grapplers, really good grappling defense. So I can definitely see this fight not only going over, but getting late into the fight, maybe even going to decision, like you said. So that was a bet that I really do have circled here. We see the over 2.5 is minus 155, and I do have some interest in that. The fight starts round 3. Looks like it is out on FanDuel. The fight starts round 3 is minus 200. I laid minus 200 on Cater Giga. Fight starts round 3. I think I might do it again here. I see this fight getting extended. I'd be shocked if I wouldn't be completely shocked. I'd be kind of surprised if Figgy went out there and just starched a very, very tough and durable Moreno, right? So I'm kind of liking that fight starts round 3. It's even that minus 185 on 5 dimes. So I think I'm going to be looking at some overs in this fight. And as far as I can't even give a pick. I need to see Figueiredo on the scales. If he looks good, maybe I do pick him. But I think what interests me the most is going to be those overs, Weezy.
Yeah, the overs are very interesting. Both of these guys are incredibly tough, incredibly difficult to finish. The only way I would probably shy away from it is if Deiveson just looks like absolute garbage on the scale again, and we think maybe this guy might quit. But I mean, nobody's finishing Brandon Moreno. He's never been finished in 5 losses. He's been to 2 draws, 26 fights. So, yeah, that over it is sticking out to me.
Yep, I like that. Could be a potential spot there. But we have one fight left. Thank you all for hanging out so far. We are an hour and 55 minutes in. So, yeah, doing pretty good on the time. If y'all at this time can hit the like button, is much appreciated. Also, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Me and Weezy go live every Sunday, 6:15 p.m. Eastern time. So, yeah, we'll be here not next week, but the week after. We have a week off next week, and they'll be back for like a ton of consecutive cards, which should be fun. Me and Weezy will be going live on my channel, DFS by the Numbers, tomorrow, 5:15 p.m. Eastern time, doing a main event deep dive where we'll talk through the whole matchup, everything, talk some betting as well. So tune in to my channel tomorrow for that. But we have Ciryl Gane going against Francis Ngannou. Very fun fight. Looking forward to it. Ciryl Gane is 31 years old, 6'4" with an 81-inch reach. Francis Ngannou, 35 years old, 6'4" with an 83-inch reach. Ciryl Gane is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He has a submission win over Tanner Boser, a knockout win against JDS, a decision win against Rosenstruck and Volkov, and then most recently a knockout against Derek Lewis and Ngannou. He is also 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He has a knockout win over Curtis Blades, a knockout win over Velasquez, a knockout win over JDS, Rosenstruck, and Stipe. So this is one of those fights where, you break everything down and you really like what you see on the Gane side. I mean, this is a guy who, for the heavyweight division, has phenomenal volume, phenomenal cardio. I mean, there's not a lot of guys like Ciryl Gane in the UFC in terms of the heavyweight division. There's nobody like Ciryl Gane. He's good everywhere. He's a good grappler, a good wrestler, great takedown defense, great cardio, great output. I like everything I see about Ciryl Gane. On top of that, his fight IQ is really good. He's good at not getting hit. He's good at, when there's danger, kind of getting out of the way, which I think is going to be important in this fight. So I like a lot of things for Ciryl Gane, but it's one of those matchups where you have a freak of nature on the other side of Francis Ngannou, who it only takes one shot. So yes, I like all these things about Gane. I like him a lot, but it really only takes one shot from Francis Ngannou to end the fight. I will say this fight is in the bigger cage, which I think that significantly does favor Ciryl Gane. He's going to be able to move around a lot more. So I do give him that, but it's going to take Francis one shot, and that's what scares me the most. But yeah, there's money flooding in on Ciryl Gane. I remember taping this fight a couple weeks ago, and Ciryl Gane was at -110. And I was honestly planning on betting him, but now he's like -140, -150. And I don't think I'm going to touch it at that line. But yeah, this is a very good fight. I like Gane a lot, but Francis scares the crap out of me, Weezy.
I mean, as he should, man. If you're not scared of that dude, there's something wrong with you. You probably have a mental illness. So yeah, this is going to be, it's really kind of hard to break down because it's one of these, well, what if Francis lands the big shot, and the stat that we're looking at here is the knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. Francis Ngannou is landing a knockdown on 4.3% of the significant strikes that he lands. So if you do that math, okay, you're looking at about 1 every 22 or 23 strikes that Francis Ngannou lands, somebody winds up looking at the canvas. They get knocked down. So what are the odds that Ngannou lands about 22 significant strikes in this fight? Because if he lands that many, chances are Cyryl's going down at some point. And that's the crux of this fight, because it's a big cage. That helps. Boy, because Cyryl's going to have to move those feet. He's going to have to move laterally. He's going to need to get Francis to chase him. And if he comes in with really good conditioning and the ability to be able to move his feet and stay on his bike for 25 full minutes, I don't think there's any question that he can outpoint Francis. And then after the 2.5 round mark, when Francis won't have really that power left because his gas tank really, you can only fuel that kind of explosiveness for so long. I think Gane can really take over as the fight goes on, but those first 2 rounds, are going to be terrifying, absolutely terrifying. This is not Derek Lewis, this is Francis Ngannou. This is a guy has the same kind of athletic gifts that Gane does. He's not that fast, but he's way more explosive than Gane, way more explosive. And that athleticism is something that it's so rare to see. I mean, you think about the history of the UFC heavyweight division. You don't find a lot of guys that can put together more than one skill at a time. Like all these champions, like JDS was a pure boxer. Really, I mean, he was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but he never really went out searching for takedowns. Cain Velasquez used his cardio and his wrestling and his volume to win. Stipe Miocic is one of the few champions that had wrestling and striking. There are even Randy Couture would just hold people up against the cage and win minutes there. There are very few guys that have the athleticism of Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane in this division, and then pair that with one terrifying skill set. With Ngannou, it's explosiveness and power, and with Gane, it's speed. So, yeah, I can't even really predict this fight because it's like flipping a damn coin. Is Francis Ngannou going to land one of those big canned hams on Ciryl Gane's chin? Because if he does, he's going down and he's going to sleep. And if he doesn't, I think he's got about 10 minutes before he gasses out, and then Gane just starts absolutely styling on him and finishes it late. Fight doesn't go to decision is what, minus 3,000 for this one?
Minus 250.
Minus 250. I like that. I think that's a parlay piece, you guys, because Francis Ngannou isn't going 5 rounds. He's just not. Because if he goes 5 rounds, it means he didn't even try to finish this fight. And that would be the dumbest thing that he could possibly do.
Yeah, no, I was kind of thinking, Dan brought this up. He says the 4-5 decision for Gane is 3-1. I kind of like that. I think I did that with Holloway where against who did he fight last?
Yair.
Yair, yeah. So I did the 4-5 decision for Holloway, and then I also sprinkled that 3rd round as well, just in case. So I think I might do that with Gane. If it's 3-1, 4-5 decision, 3-1 there, and then maybe sprinkle the 3rd. Because I think if Gane's going to win, I think this does get extended at least to the 3rd, right? Like he's not going to overextend himself. He's not going to try to put himself in too much danger for at least like the first round and a half, 2 rounds. So I kind of like that 4-5 decision, maybe sprinkle that 3rd. That 3-1 does look pretty juicy. But yeah, if you like Ngannou, you got to think he's going to finish in the first round and a half, 2 rounds, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's just not his game to win minutes. You don't have to win minutes when once out of every 22 times you hit somebody so hard that they wake up next week. That's why this guy is so dangerous. And, it's the judo background too for Ngannou. I mean, the guy's a legit judoka. I mean, you can't just go in there in the clinch and muscle this guy to the ground. No. He's got fantastic balance. And he's got just a ridiculous strength. I mean, you can't really put that much muscle on a human body most of the time and then have them have any kind of athletic ability. But Ngannou does have that athletic ability. He's so explosive. And let's not forget that these guys used to train together. They were both MMA factory products in France. And now, Ngannou's had to move. He's here in the States at Extreme Couture, while Ciryl Gane now is the guy over at the MMA factory when it used to be Ngannou. So these guys know each other. They've sparred together. We don't exactly know what these guys know about each other. I think it's it's a dangerous fight to bet because there's a lot of missing information here. Wouldn't you love to have some footage of some of those old sparring sessions between these two guys to kind of see, is Ciryl dancing around him and making him look stupid, or is he just running?
Yeah.
Because it's got to be one or the other, right?
Yes. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, we see the line. Gane, believe it or not, opened up as a plus 165 dog, went immediately to plus 100, and he's now minus 150, Ciryl Gane. Ngannou opened up as a minus 190 favorite. He's now plus 130. I mean, I agree with the line movement, I guess. I mean, I just don't want to lay chalk on Gane here when I know it literally can only take one punch, and I think it's possible. It is very possible, and Ngannou knocks out Ciryl Gane. I kind of like the line a lot more when it was more towards a pick'em. I feel like that was more accurate, to be honest. But Gane, he's gonna have a ton of advantages here. I get it, but Ngannou has that one X factor, and that's the power, and that very well could be enough here. So I'm not gonna bet Ciryl Gane at chalk. If I was to bet anything, I do like what Dan pointed out with the 4-5 decision. We see that the over under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 minus 110. The under 2.5 minus 120. The fight goes to decision plus 190. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 250. Any thoughts on the money line and any thoughts on any props that stick out?
I think I would bet Ngannou here if you made me bet a money line, but I mean there'd be no reason to bet Ngannou's money line. Just bet him by KO. That's how you get at least a little bit of extra. I mean, if Gane's money line, or I mean, if Ngannou's money line is plus 120, it's probably plus 121 by KO. So I don't know if you're going to get any value from it, but Ngannou's fought the better competition here, in my opinion. He's going to be the more powerful guy. Obviously, this fight, I don't see there even being one takedown attempt in this fight. I don't think anybody's going to waste their time trying to win minutes on the ground here. It would be stupid for Ciryl to waste his energy like that, because Ngannou is very, very difficult to take down, even harder to hold down. And Gane doesn't have the kind of wrestling game to even fuck with that, in my opinion. So I think it's going to be a striking battle. And it's just going to be, does Ngannou land that one big shot? And Gane's going to have a big cage to move around in. He's going to dance. But I can't wait for this fight, Brady. Fight doesn't go to decision. And then Ngannou inside the distance, or just the Gane money line, all makes sense for bets. But this is such a great neither one of these guys better get COVID. Let's just make sure that this fight happens, because I need to see it.
Yes, I'm really, really looking forward to this fight. But yeah, that is about it. We went through it, 13 fights. I'm sure the card order is going to change around. Hopefully we don't lose any fights, but it is what it is. So yeah, Weezy, let everybody know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the week in terms of content. And again, congrats on 1K subs. It's awesome.
Yeah, you can find me right here on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday night for Stat Diggers, every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Central Time for the DFS DraftKings show that we do. And I do balls deep breakdowns of fights on my channel, Uncle Weezy. And then every Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Central Time, I do a full card breakdown called Just the Tip. We finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. And every once in a while, we throw a little story time with Uncle Weezy into the mix there to kind of lighten up the mood a little bit. Thank each and every one of you guys for spending your Sunday night with us. Thank you, Pub Sports Radio, for continuing to have this platform for Brady and I to do this. God bless each and every one of you. And I can't wait to stack cash tickets like flapjacks here on UFC 270, my man.
Let's do it. Yeah, there's actually a ton of spots sticking out that I'm really looking to bet. And hopefully it's another good night for us and everybody watching out there. You can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers, live on Pub Sports Radio a couple times a week. Check out our DraftKings show on Wednesday with MMA Monk, Luke from Sparring with Reality, Weezy, and me. Always a very fun show with them. And then on top of that, me and Weezy going live on my channel, DFS by the numbers, tomorrow, Monday, for the main event deep dive. We're going to go very deep into this fight, 5:15 p.m. Eastern time. And my full card breakdown prediction video should be out hopefully Tuesday morning. So that is about it. Weezy, any last words before we head out of here?
Thank you, everybody that subscribed to my channel to get me to 1,000. It's humbling to get to that mark. I appreciate everybody that watches my videos, and I appreciate Pub Sports Radio for giving us this platform to do this, man. I love doing this show. It's a great way to spend my Sunday nights, and I love that you guys spend your Sunday nights with us too. Even when there's football on, we had over 100 people in here today, Brady. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you guys for showing up, especially on a day with football, playoff football, very important stuff. But yeah, that is about it. Good luck for UFC 270. Let's make some money, and it should be a very fun card. See you guys later.